His ruthless ex-wife crushed his surgical hand and ruined his entire career without a single shred of mercy. Yet 1 year after their bitter divorce, the show host reached out, begging him to operate on his ex-father-in-law. What comes around truly goes around, and every old wound came flooding back the second he picked up that call. It had been a full year of zero contact with his ex-wife's entire family. Out of nowhere, an urgent call from a live mediation show popped up on Fu Chen's phone. "Mr. Fu Chen, your father-in-law has suffered a horrific car accident." A shard of glass pierced straight through his heart, and no surgeon on earth can operate on him except you. Could you please come back and perform this life-saving surgery for him in person? Fu Chen froze for a brief moment, countless painful memories swirling wildly inside his mind. Without the slightest hint of hesitation, he gave them a flat, unyielding refusal. The mediator on the other end of the line was totally caught off guard, completely stunned by his answer. He clearly never imagined that this world-famous surgeon would stand by and watch a man face certain death. He kept trying to reason with Fu Chen, hoping he would change his cold-blooded decision. But Fu Chen only spat out one icy sentence, his voice heavy with years of buried agony. "When my ex-wife crushed my right hand all those years ago, she should have foreseen this exact outcome. Do not ever call me again to talk about this matter." The instant he hung up the phone, the live-stream audience exploded into chaotic, noisy uproar. In that heated moment, his mind was dragged forcefully back to the terrible events from 5 long years ago. His ex-wife's first love, Su Haoyu, had gotten behind the wheel while dead drunk and ran over his own mother. Fu Chen filed formal charges and dragged the man straight into court, desperate to get justice for his late mother. Yet case after case got thrown out, all because critical evidence kept slipping out of reach. Just when Fu Chen was sinking deep into hopeless despair, fate tossed another cruel blow his way. Su Haoyu's mother was diagnosed with a dangerous brain tumor, and no other surgeon could complete her excision operation. His very first instinct was to turn down the request without a second thought. But before he could utter a formal reply, several strong men kidnapped him and hauled him down into a damp basement. Xinhuan Ning viciously stomped all of her weight down onto his precious right hand. At the same time, multiple burly men dragged his younger sister Yu Yu off into a separate small room. Her broken, helpless cries echoed through every corner of that cold basement, tearing Fu Chen's heart apart. Even after committing such devilish acts, Xinhuan Ning kept a disturbingly calm look plastered across her face. "Ah Chen, you have 2 choices here. Either stand up and operate on Haoyu's mother. Or tomorrow, I will broadcast those horrible videos across every corner of Jingbei for everyone to witness." Fu Chen ground his teeth so hard his jaws ached, bloodshot eyes burning with unbridled rage as he stared at Xinhuan Ning. "You know full well Su Haoyu drove drunk and murdered my own mother. Now his mother suffers from a brain tumor. This is nothing but well-deserved karma. How dare you force me to save the life of my mortal enemy?" Xinhuan Ning acted as if she had not heard a single word of his furious protest. "Ah Chen, you only have 1 final minute left to make up your mind. If you still refuse to perform surgery for Su Haoyu's mother, I will press that live stream button without hesitation. Every person in Jingbei, even people across the whole country, will watch your sister's terrible ordeal." His sister's heart-rending screams for help stabbed into his soul like countless sharp, piercing blades. His spirit completely shattered, Fu Chen finally forced those terrible words out past his trembling lips. "I will do the surgery on Su Haoyu's mother." A satisfied look crossed Xinhuan Ning's face, and she pulled him into a tight hug. "Once this surgical procedure finishes, I will give you a luxury villa as compensation for everything." He was rushed straight into the operating room right after that brutal basement ordeal. That grueling tumor removal surgery dragged on for 12 endless, exhausting hours before it was finally finished. The second the surgery wrapped up, an incoming phone call from one of his close friends lit up his screen. "Fu Chen, the footage of what happened to your sister has already been streamed live for the public. She cannot bear this devastating humiliation any longer, and she is threatening to jump off a building." A high-pitched ringing filled both of his ears, and he sprinted as fast as he possibly could toward the rooftop. He spotted his sister sitting quietly along the roof's edge, resembling a fragile shattered porcelain doll. "Yu Yu, please come down from there. I am begging you, I cannot lose you too." The moment his sister caught sight of him, a faint, hollow smile tugged at the corners of her mouth. "Brother, you finally made it here." Fu Chen moved slowly forward, stretching out his hand, hoping he could pull her safely back to solid ground. But his sister rose slowly to her feet, her eyes empty and devoid of any trace of hope. "Brother, I cannot keep enduring all this pain anymore. I am going to go keep Mom company." Right after those words left her mouth, she leaned backward without the slightest moment of hesitation. Fu Chen threw his whole body forward like a madman, yet his hands only grasped thin, empty air. No, you. Please don't do this. Rescue workers swarmed onto the rooftop all at once, using all their strength to drag the grieving man backward. Let go of me. I have absolutely nothing left, every single member of my family is gone. Sharp, crushing agony overwhelmed his chest, and it felt as though his heart was about to burst open. A mouthful of blood surged up his throat, and his vision instantly faded into total blackness. When he regained consciousness, the heavy, sharp smell of hospital disinfectant filled his nostrils. He sat up, moving like a lifeless walking corpse, and dialed a number he had sealed away for 5 full years. I accept all of your terms, and I only hold one single non-negotiable demand. I want Xinhuan Ning and Su Haoyu to pay every bit of the price they rightfully deserve. Silence lingered on the other end of the line for a short stretch of time before a crisp female voice responded. No problem at all. I will personally come pick you up 1 month from today. Once he ended that important phone call, he shot a quick message over to his trusted lawyer. Draw up a formal divorce agreement for me immediately, without any delay. Barely after the message sent, a soft figure pressed her body right against his chest. Achan, I feel so terrible about what happened to your sister, but everything was purely an equipment malfunction. Xinhuan Ning's gentle, soothing voice echoed inside the hospital ward. Fu Qin pushed her away with a completely blank, emotionless expression on his face. Xinhuan Ning reached out and grabbed hold of his hand, acting as if none of those horrific tragedies had ever unfolded. You wanted your old hospital position back, right? I have already notified the hospital administration. They will even grant you that prestigious professor title you have always longed for. Fu Qin let out a cold, mocking sneer and roughly shook her hand off of his. Is this what you consider compensation for me? Compensation bought with the precious lives of my mother and my sister? Right at that exact moment, his lawyer stepped into the ward while holding official documents. Fu Qin took the divorce agreement from the lawyer's grasp, his eyes glinting with scorn directed toward Xinhuan Ning. Didn't you mention you would give me a villa as compensation? Sign this document. Hearing him bring up material compensation, Xinhuan Ning immediately let out a visible sigh of relief. She was just about to lift the document to read its contents, when the ward door swung open once more. Su Haoyu rushed inside, panic written all across his facial features. Wan Ning, my mother is complaining of terrible chest pain all of a sudden. Did something go wrong with the surgery? Xinhuan Ning's gaze darkened instantly, and she firmly clamped her fingers around Fu Chen's wrist. You told me how Yu's mother's surgery turned out a complete success. How could this sort of thing happen? Fu Chen observed her frantic, anxious demeanor, and he recalled her icy indifference on the day his mother died. A powerful wave of bitter irony washed all over his entire being. He maintained a perfectly calm tone as he delivered his reply. Postoperative complications are an extremely common occurrence after major surgical procedures. Su Haoyu stared at him, desperation shining deep within his eyes. Mr. Fu, I know you harbor immense hatred toward me. Take every bit of your resentment out on me, just please do not harm my mother. Xinhuan Ning fixed him with a gloomy, menacing stare. Go treat Haoyu's mother right this instant. If anything else goes wrong. Fu Chen's gaze remained coldly fixed on the document held in Xinhuan Ning's hands. Sign it. The second you put your signature down, I will head over without delay. Xinhuan Ning froze for several seconds, then quickly scrawled her signature across the paper. He took the fully signed divorce agreement and promptly handed it over to the lawyer standing nearby. Process this paperwork as quickly as you possibly can. The lawyer hastily tucked the divorce agreement inside his briefcase and nodded toward Fu Chen. Mr. Fu, the whole formal procedure will only take roughly 30 days to finish. Fu Chen walked the lawyer out of the hospital room, then followed Su Haoyu toward the luxury VIP ward. The instant he stepped foot inside that room, a heavy vase came flying and smashed hard against his forehead. The ceramic shattered into countless fragments all across the floor surface. Bright red blood slowly trickled down from the gash on his forehead. Su's mother glared toward him, her face twisted with unbridled rage. Did you sabotage me while you were performing that surgery? Why is my chest throbbing in agony? Fu Chen locked eyes with her, his own gaze chilling enough to send shivers down one's spine. I sacrificed my sister's well-being to spend 12 grueling hours saving your life. He never imagined that her very first reaction upon waking would be to hurl false accusations his way. He wanted to avoid stirring up extra trouble before the divorce could be finalized, so he reined in his burning anger. He stepped forward toward the hospital bed, pulling his stethoscope out from his pocket. But before he could begin his examination, Sue's mother suddenly lifted her palm and slapped him forcefully across the cheek. "Do you even understand how to practice medicine? Are you just waving that stethoscope to brush me off?" Fu Chen covered his swollen, stinging cheek, pure fury bubbling up inside of him. "Mrs. Su, if you doubt my professional skill, you are fully allowed to request a different attending doctor. But you have physically assaulted me repeatedly, and you have already inflicted real bodily harm." Hardly had those words left his mouth when another loud slap echoed through the ward. "So what if I hit you? What exactly do you plan to do, Sumi? Have you forgotten how your sister met her end? Next time misfortune will land directly on you." Sue's mother wore a smug, triumphant look across her face. "Your mother was nothing but a con artist, she deserved getting hit by that car. Your sister was a shameless woman, so it stands to reason you are worthless as well." Hearing his murdered mother and sister get insulted by the very people who destroyed his family pushed Fu Chen over the edge. He lunged forward and wrapped his hands tightly around Sue's mother's neck. "You are the real killers of my family. What right do you have to slander their names? I gave you the gift of life, and I can very easily send you straight down to hell." Right after he spoke those sharp words, a powerful force shoved him violently backward. His body crashed heavily into the nightstand, and searing pain shot through every inch of his body. Xinhuan Ning positioned herself in front of the hospital bed, shielding Su Haoyu and his mother behind her frame. She looked at Fu Chen with obvious disgust etched all over her face. "Fu Chen, I truly thought after everything that happened to your sister you would learn some sense. I never expected you would grow even worse and attack a recovering patient. You have thoroughly let me down." Su Haoyu stood behind Xinhuan Ning, putting on a round, aggrieved expression for everyone present. "My mother just survived a major high-risk surgery. Her body cannot endure this kind of brutal conflict." Xinhuan Ning held Su Haoyu's hand tightly, clear heartache visible in her eyes as she looked at him. "Fu Chen, you will apologize this instant." Fu Chen balled his hands into tight fists, staring stubbornly back toward Xinhuan Ning. "Why should I offer an apology? Why should I beg forgiveness from the people responsible for wiping out my whole family?" Xinhuan Ning's expression darkened completely, and she raised one hand toward the bodyguards behind her. "Since my husband refuses to give his apology, take him to the ancestral hall and make him kneel there. Only once he recognizes his own mistakes are you permitted to set him free." Fu Chen's pupils instantly constricted in shock. The ancestral hall was a forbidden zone within the entire Shin family compound. Xinhuan Ning kept 2 ferocious Tibetan mastiffs chained within that building as guards. Those massive dogs were notoriously violent, and many people had suffered painful bites from them over the years. Several guards practically dragged Fu Chen all the way to the ancestral hall. The moment they tossed him inside the room, the 2 Tibetan mastiffs fixed their eerie, hungry eyes squarely onto his figure. He spun around, ready to run for his life, yet the bodyguard slammed the heavy doors shut without hesitation. The wound on his forehead had never gotten proper treatment, and the scent of fresh blood lingered all over him. As soon as the 2 dogs caught that bloody smell, they charged forward and pounced at him ferociously. One of the mastiffs clamped its powerful jaws firmly down onto his right hand. Bearing that unbearable, searing agony, he fumbled around for his mobile phone and dialed Xinhuan Ning's number. The phone kept ringing for a very long time before she finally picked up the call. "Xinhuan Ning, please save me. These 2 dogs have completely gone wild." On the other end of the phone line, Xinhuan Ning paused for a brief second. Before she could form a reply, Su Haoyu's voice filtered through the speaker. "Wan Ning, those 2 mastiffs were always so obedient when I gave them to you. How could they possibly hurt anyone?" Upon hearing Su Haoyu's comment, Xinhuan Ning's tone turned ice cold. "Quit trying to play these manipulative tricks on me. When you admit your faults, I will let you out." Those heartless words made Fu Chen feel as if he had plunged deep inside a freezing ice cave. In her eyes, even his desperate cries for help were nothing more than a cheap trick. A sickening cracking sound echoed out the very next second. His bitten wrist felt as though the bones had snapped clean in two. Excruciating pain nearly knocked him completely unconscious. He no longer possessed any strength left to scream for assistance. Thick bright red blood kept pouring out nonstop from his mangled hand. His consciousness slowly started to grow blurred and foggy. Right before he blacked out, he swore he saw Xinhuan Ning rushing toward him like a madwoman. She pulled him tight into her trembling arms. Achan, I am so sorry. When he regained awareness, he was lying inside that familiar hospital ward once more. Sharp, stabbing pain radiated from his hand, and he quickly realized he could not lift it even a tiny bit. How could something this terrible have come to pass? Panic surged through him, and he attempted to climb out of the hospital bed. Xinhuan Ning heard all of his commotion and hurried over from the nearby sofa, pulling him into a grief-stricken embrace. Hubby, my deepest apologies. The mastiff bit clean through all the tendons inside your hand. You will never again be able to hold a scalpel for the rest of your life. Fu Chen stared down numbly at his ruined hand, opening his mouth, yet not a single word would come out. That hand had saved countless human lives and built his respected reputation within the medical industry. Now it was permanently destroyed beyond repair. How on earth was he supposed to accept this cruel reality? On the ride heading back home, he stared silently out of the car window without uttering one single word. Xinhuan Ning reached over and held his hand, her features soft and full of pretended tenderness. Achan, I am arranging a formal funeral ceremony for your mother and your sister tomorrow. I will make certain they receive a grand, dignified send-off. When he heard mention of the funeral service, his rigid expression softened just a small amount. He was about to open his mouth to speak, when Xinhuan Ning's phone suddenly began ringing. He glanced quickly over at the caller identification display. It was Su Hao Yu. Wan Ning, my mother's chest pain has flared up again. I have no idea what to do. Could you please come over and stay by my side? Xinhuan Ning slammed her foot hard down on the car brakes and spoke soothingly into the phone. Wait for me over at the hospital. I will arrive there very shortly. Once she hung up the call, she looked toward Fu Chen with a grave, serious look on her face. Achan, please take a taxi back home on your own. How you need somebody to be with him right now. Fu Chen let out a bitter sneer. Are you a qualified doctor? Just because he calls you, you can magically cure his mother? Xinhuan Ning's mood turned frosty in an instant. Fu Chen, his mother suffers terribly because you botched that surgical operation. Those severe complications are your fault. I am merely trying to help you atone for your sins. After finishing that statement, Xinhuan Ning climbed out of the vehicle and pulled open his car door. Get out right now. The second his feet touched the ground, Xinhuan Ning impatiently started the car engine and sped away. She left him stranded all alone in this desolate suburban area, where not a single taxi would pass by. As daylight faded and the sky darkened, he prepared to start walking along the empty road. Several large, burly men stepped out from a shadowed alleyway nearby. One of them stepped forward and stomped his boot brutally onto his already shattered right hand. Wave after wave of crippling pain washed over his body, and he nearly lost consciousness. One thug stepped forward and spoke directly to him. I hear you are Xinhuan Ning's husband. We only want to ask you for a little bit of pocket money. His poorly healed wounds tore open all over again, fresh blood seeping out. Fu Chen ground his teeth together. I do not have any money to give you. The kidnapper took out his mobile phone and placed a call, a mocking sneer spreading across his face. You may not have cash, but Xinhuan Ning definitely has plenty of it. As soon as he finished talking, a cold female voice came from the other end of the phone line. Who is this? The kidnapper altered his tone of voice and delivered his threat. Xinhuan Ning, your husband is now in our custody. Transfer 10 million over to us immediately. There was a short pause on the other end before Xinhuan Ning let out a cold mocking laugh. Fu Chen, you knew I was tending to Hao Yu's mother. You hired these people to pull this cheap stunt to trick me, didn't you? Right after saying those words, Xinhuan Ning ended the phone call without further discussion. Enraged, the kidnapper grabbed a wooden stool and smashed it forcefully against his body. Fu Chen coughed violently, spitting up a mouthful of fresh blood. Glancing at the deep lake behind the metal railing, he threw himself over without any hesitation. Ice-cold lake water instantly swallowed his whole body. Dimly, he could hear the kidnappers arguing with one another on the lakeshore. The boss only told us to hurt him. He never ordered us to kill him. If this guy dies, who is going to take responsibility for this mess? When he finally opened his eyes again, he was lying inside the Shin family's large mansion. He tried to push himself upright, only to hear a loud crashing noise echoing from the living room. Xinhuan Ning furiously smashed a decorative vase against the hard floor. Find those culprits for me no matter what price we have to pay. If word leaks out that Xinhuan Ning's husband got attacked, whoever spreads the news will pay with their life. Su Hao pulled Xinhuan Ning into a comforting embrace, gently patting her back to calm her down. Wan Ning, it is possible that Mr. Fu was truly nothing more than an innocent victim. Upon hearing Fu Chen's name mentioned, Shenwan Ning's facial expression turned terrifyingly dark. The kidnappers already publicly released their recorded audio files for everyone to hear. This entire incident was a show he wrote and performed all by himself. He tossed away every last shred of his dignity just for the sake of grabbing some quick cash. Shenwan Ning's cruel words cut deep into his heart, bringing unbearable suffocating agony. She had not even bothered to hear out his side of the story, yet she had already judged him as completely shameless. Early the very next morning, he arrived for the funeral Shenwan Ning had arranged for his mother and sister. Inside the main ceremonial hall hung black and white portraits of the two loved ones who had been alive merely 1 month prior. He knelt down on the floor cushion, burning Jaws paper inside the brazier nonstop from 8 in the morning until noon. Shenwan Ning never once showed up throughout those long hours. The auspicious time for the burial ceremony was drawing very near. Staring at the empty hall, he picked up both of his family members' urns and walked out the door all by himself. The instant he stepped outdoors, a huge swarm of reporters rushed forward and completely surrounded his position. "Mr. Fu, we have received reports you colluded with kidnappers to extort money from your own wife. Are you terrified of being dumped by CEO Shen, so you tried to grab cash and run away? Mr. Fu, first your mother died trying to scam a driver, then your sister killed herself out of shame after secret affairs with men. Now you are involved in extortion. Could it be that your whole family is rotten deep down to the core?" Every sharp, sarcastic question was like countless tiny needles stabbing deep into his flesh and bones. His legs wobbled, and he collapsed heavily onto the ground. The urn slipped out from his grasp and went flying across the pavement. Amid the total chaos, somebody stepped directly onto one of the urn containers. The vessel cracked open, scattering ashes all over the dirty ground. He crawled forward across the rough ground on his knees like a man gone insane, trembling hands trying to scoop those scattered ashes into his palms. "Get away from me, all of you! Stay back!" But the crowd seemed to do it on purpose, continuously trampling over the ashes belonging to his mother and sister. In all that chaos, another person shoved him hard in the back. He slammed into the sharp corner of a heavy table, and blood began gushing out from a brand new wound. Right at that moment, more than a dozen Bentley vehicles slowly pulled up to the scene. Before the cars even fully came to a stop, Shenwan Ning threw open her car door and sprinted outside. "What in the world do you think you people are doing?" Shenwan Ning looked at Fu Chen lying in a pool of his own blood, her face seemingly full of heartbreak. She was about to pull him into her arms, yet her hands froze mid-air and stopped short. She turned her head toward her assistant instead. "Take my husband over to the hospital." The assistant gave Shenwan Ning an awkward, confused look. "CEO Shen, are you absolutely certain this is the proper thing to do?" But Shenwan Ning simply turned her back and would not spare him even one extra glance. At that very second, Fu Chen's heart felt as if it had been pierced by a frigid ice pick. When he woke up in his hospital bed, his mobile phone lit up with an incoming text message. It was an official notice sent over from the hospital administration. "Hello Mr. Fu Chen. Due to serious moral misconduct that has severely damaged our hospital's public reputation, you are hereby dismissed." He read that message and let out a bitter laugh full of self-mockery. When they still needed his surgical talent, they praised him as if he were the bright moon hanging high in the sky. Once he was no longer useful, they tossed him aside like worthless trash. He remained inside the hospital for 3 full days, and Shenwan Ning never visited him even one single time. After he was discharged and headed back home, he lifted his foot to push open the front door before freezing completely in place. He could clearly hear Shenwan Ning's voice speaking from inside the house. "I will never grant Fu Chen a divorce. Do not ever let me hear you suggest that again." Shenwan Ning's face clouded over with rage, and she swept bowls and chopsticks flying off the table onto the floor. Shen's mother sat on the living room sofa with an ugly scowl, her eyes brimming with disgust and dissatisfaction aimed at Fu Chen. Keeping a greedy, ungrateful man like him around. Hasn't the Shen family already lost enough public respect? Shenwan Ning tore the divorce agreement right in front of her into countless tiny shreds, her expression terrifyingly cold. "Starting tomorrow, I will make sure Fu Chen barely leaves this household, so he stops bringing shame to the Shen family name. For all future business gatherings, Suha you will accompany me, and I will absolutely not get divorced." Standing outside the doorway, he gripped the doorknob so tightly the veins on the back of his injured hand bulged outward. Shenwan Ning's so-called love was so absurd it made his stomach turn. That night, bitter cold wind howled loudly outside the window. He stood beside the glass and dialed his lawyer's phone number. Sell all of the Shin Corporation shares registered under my personal name. Though the lawyer on the other end of the call felt confused, he dared not ask too many follow-up questions. Understood. Also, the divorce proceedings with CEO Shin are entering their final phase. You will receive your divorce certificate in at most 10 days. Fu Chen nodded slightly. If any complications pop up, move everything along as fast as you can. I need to depart from this place within those 10 days. Hardly had he finished speaking those words, when the main door got violently pushed open. Xinhuan Ning stood in the doorway, her face icy with anger. Where exactly are you planning to go? His grip around his mobile phone tightened a little bit. He was just about to give her a reply, when someone knocked on the downstairs front door. Xinhuan Ning headed down to open the entrance door. The instant she pulled it open, Su Haoyu wrapped his arms tightly all around her body. Wan Ning, ever since my mother's surgery, she has been suffering from constant terrible chest pain. What on earth are we supposed to do? Xinhuan Ning returned his embrace, comforting him in soft gentle tones, while her cold gaze drifted over toward Fu Chun. Why is Haoyu's mother suffering from such brutal after effects? What exactly did you do during that surgical operation? Fu Chun glanced at Su Haoyu and let out a scornful scoff. The surgery I performed was on her brain tissue. If you want to figure out why her chest hurts so badly, you ought to go ask him. Hearing this reply, Su Haoyu's expression turned even more wronged and pitiful. Wan Ning, I have heard that deep-sea dragon saliva herb can ease every kind of physical discomfort once consumed. Since Mr. Fu insists my mother's pain has nothing to do with him, I will dive down to the ocean floor myself to find this herb. I only have one mother left. I cannot bear watching her keep suffering through this illness. Su Haoyu made as if he was about to rush out the door to carry out his reckless plan. Xinhuan Ning forcefully grabbed hold of him and pulled him back. You cannot swim at all. Diving down there will get you killed. After saying that, Xinhuan Ning shifted her sharp gaze fully onto Fu Chen. Fu Chen, Haoyu's mother's painful postoperative symptoms are your fault. You will go and retrieve that dragon saliva herb for Haoyu. Treat this as your chance to make amends for your wrongs. Fu Chen stared at Xinhuan Ning, utterly disbelieving what he had just heard. The biggest sin I ever committed was saving that woman's life in the first place. Xinhuan Ning's facial features darkened instantly. Fu Chen, how could you turn so cruel and completely unreasonable? Xinhuan Ning then opened up the photo album on her smartphone. Displayed on the screen were pictures of his mother's and sister's urn containers. Her voice turned icy and sharp as she continued speaking. Last time, I ordered my people to gather whatever remained of their scattered ashes. But whether you get those ashes back or not depends entirely on your actions. Fu Chen ground his teeth together and glared furiously across at Xinhuan Ning. Even if Su Haoyu's mother is unwell, the hospital has doctors, nurses, and top-of-the-range medical equipment available. Yet you blindly believe in this dragon saliva herb that Su Haoyu made up out of nowhere. Xinhuan Ning, can you not see how ridiculous all of this is? Xinhuan Ning remained completely unmoved by his reasonable arguments. Ah Chen, I am not going to repeat my request a second time. Fu Chen fell dead silent, drowning in overwhelming despair. With his heart reduced to cold ash, he finally nodded his head in bitter compromise. Fine. I will go get it. Shortly afterward, he was escorted out toward open sea riding on board a large luxury yacht. This stretch of ocean was never particularly deep, with its maximum depth hovering right around 100 meters, yet that mark already sat at the absolute safety limit for ordinary divers. I glanced over toward the yacht's cabin and caught sight of Xinhuan sipping red wine side by side with Su Haoyu, and every last flicker of feeling inside my chest died away completely. Su Haoyu lifted the wine glass he had just been drinking from and held it up to Xinhuan's lips. His tone laced with fake, performative concern. Wanting, forcing Mr. Fu to jump into the water on such a bitterly cold day, what if something terrible ends up happening to him? A faint, unconcerned smile tugged at the corners of Xinhuan's mouth as she listened to his false worry. Fu Chen used to love going diving whenever stress weighed heavy on his mind. He was even the swimming team champion back in college, so there is no need for you to fret. Bone-chilling sea wind whipped hard against my cheeks, stinging my exposed skin without mercy. I instinctively curled my damaged right hand tight, and it hit me that Xinhuan had conveniently forgotten all about my severed hand tendons. Bright powerful floodlights illuminated the churning surface of the dark sea all around me. I took a deep breath and hurled my body straight down into the icy seawater. The moment I reached the seabed 100 meters below the waves, I barely had time to process my surroundings before a gigantic shark crashed violently into my body. Sharp, searing pain shot through every muscle in my frame, but out of the corner of my eye I spotted the dragon saliva herb Suhayu had described swaying directly beneath my feet. I ground my teeth hard against the agony and drove my body further down toward the ocean floor. As soon as my fingers closed firmly around the precious herb, I kicked hard and swam upward with every ounce of strength I could muster. In the very next instant, the massive shark lunged straight for me, its blood-soaked jaws stretched wide open. I did not dare waste even a single second. I ripped my oxygen tank free and hurled it with all my might right at the charging shark. I was drawing close to the water's surface when a brutal tearing ache flared up inside my injured wrist. That overwhelming pain drained nearly all my power, leaving my arm almost completely immobile. I was slowly sinking down, drifting straight toward the shark's gaping, deadly maw, ready for the end to come. Then a huge splash erupted across the sea surface, and a figure swam toward me like a total madman. I stared at Shinwaning's terrified, panicked face rushing toward me, and the whole situation struck me as utterly absurd. Shinwaning, if I had the power to turn back time, I would choose never to cross paths with you at all. After I got back to the Shin family mansion that night, my body was overcome by a raging high fever. The fever lingered for multiple days, and it was only after quite some time that I could barely keep plain porridge down in my stomach. One ordinary day, I quietly began gathering all of my personal belongings to prepare for departure. I had just started placing items into my suitcase when the bedroom door got slammed open without warning. Shinwaning stormed furiously into the room. She grabbed hold of my wrist with brutal force and shouted her accusations right in my face. "What exactly did you do to that dragon saliva herb? Why is Suhaoyu's mother throwing up and suffering from non-stop diarrhea after consuming it? Her condition has grown far worse." I tried my hardest to twist free from Shinwaning's tight grip, but my weakened body simply could not generate enough strength. I fixed her with a cold, hollow stare, every word heavy with accumulated resentment. "You yourself took possession of that dragon saliva herb. Now that things have gone horribly wrong, you rush over here to point all the blame onto me?" Shinwaning's eyes burned with sharp, unforgiving anger as she glared directly at my face. "Fuchin, your methods are just as filthy and despicable as you are as a person. You better pray Suhaoyu's mother pulls through this crisis. If she does not make it out alive, I swear I will never let you get away with what you have done." My entire body went rigid under the weight of her cruel words. Shinwaning's disgusted expression cut into my soul like countless sharp blades, tormenting me over and over again. Shinwaning lifted one of her hands, and two burly bodyguards immediately hurried into the bedroom in response to her silent signal. Her gaze burned with unbridled fury as she issued her cold orders out loud. "Since you still refuse to admit your mistakes and repent for your actions, you will go kneel at the main entrance of the hospital. You stay kneeling there until Suhaoyu's mother is safely out of danger. Take him away, and he is forbidden to stand up without my explicit permission." I was dragged over to the hospital entrance just like a convicted criminal who had committed some terrible crime. I knelt there beneath the mocking, scornful stares of countless passers-by, enduring every bit of their silent ridicule. I stayed on my knees from early morning all the way until night finally fell across the city, before Suhaoyu casually strolled out through the hospital doors. A playful, smug look rested on his features as he looked down at my worn-out kneeling form. "Mr. Fu, my mother is now out of life-threatening danger. I personally begged Wanting to allow you to head home and get some much-needed rest." Right after he finished speaking those condescending words, my phone inside my pocket began to vibrate non-stop. It was an incoming message sent by my trusted lawyer. "Mr. Fu, all divorce formalities between you and CEO Shin have been fully completed. I have mailed your divorce certificate over to you, your shares have also been liquidated. And the corresponding funds have been transferred into your bank account, please check your balance." Reading through that message, a heavy weight lifted off my chest and I let out a quiet sigh of relief. I had finally earned my freedom, and I could walk away from this nightmare for good. I struggled to push my exhausted body up onto my feet, and I shot a sharp, warning glare straight toward Suhaoyu. "Suhaoyu, I will be right here waiting, to watch exactly how everything ends for you." With those words spoken, I held my head high, turned around, and stepped forward into the deep darkness of the night. Once I left the hospital grounds, I made my way straight back toward the Shin family residence. I grabbed my packed luggage, threw one final glance at the estate that had trapped me for 5 long years. Without a single trace of sentimental attachment, I walked through the main gates of the Shin compound and left it all behind. The second I stepped outside the gate, a sleek Maybach glided smoothly to a halt directly in front of me. The car window rolled down slowly, revealing a strikingly beautiful woman's face. Fu Chen, it has been quite a long time since we last met. Over at the hospital building meanwhile, Shen Wanning sat restlessly out in the hallway. The attending doctor responsible for Su Haoyu's mother walked over while holding a full set of medical test reports in his hands. The doctor wore a grave, serious look as he relayed the test results to Shen Wanning. CEO Shen, based on all the patient's lab examinations, Su's mother is only suffering from gastroenteritis. Her condition is not critical at all. Dr. Fu's surgical operation was executed perfectly without any flaws whatsoever. Shen Wanning's hand holding onto those medical reports froze completely mid-air. She was just about to open her mouth to say something when her mobile phone suddenly started ringing loudly. It was Mother Shen calling her on the line. Wanning, disaster has struck. Your father has gotten into a terrible car accident. A shard of glass has pierced his heart. He requires emergency surgery immediately, yet the glass is lodged in such a risky spot, not a single doctor across all of Jingbei dares to perform this operation. Panic flashed across Shen Wanning's eyes the instant she heard that terrible news. The doctor standing close beside her suddenly offered up a possible solution. Among every surgeon based in Jingbei, I believe only Dr. Fu would possess the courage to take on this high-risk surgery. It is truly a great shame Dr. Fu's hand is ruined. Even so, we might ask Dr. Fu to guide our team from the sidelines. That could grant us a tiny glimmer of hope. Hearing this suggestion, Shen Wanning instantly tried to dial my phone number. Yet in the next split second, her facial expression darkened entirely, because she discovered I had blocked her contact. Shen Wanning roared out in uncontrolled rage. Fu Chen, you have really grown bold, how dare you block my calls? She pulled out her phone and immediately contacted the family butler. Find out where Fu Chen has gone, order him to get over to First People's Hospital right this very second. The butler fell silent for a brief moment before answering in a state of obvious panic. Madam, sir returned home, collected a handful of his belongings, and then left. Nobody has any clue where he has gone to. Shen Wanning's gaze turned blank and hollow, and a sharp stabbing pain suddenly stabbed right through her heart. She clutched tightly at her chest as she staggered forward, and called out for her assistant. No matter what kinds of methods you have to use, locate Fu Chen at once. Bring him to the hospital to save my father's life. By the time Shen Wanning rushed over to the hospital ward, Mother Shen's complexion had turned deathly pale. She was so overwhelmed with fear that she could barely keep herself standing upright. Shen Wanning firmly grasped Mother Shen's trembling hand. Her eyes locked unblinkingly onto the operating room and its glaring red status light hanging above the doorway. I have already dispatched people to hunt for Fu Chen. He will definitely arrive here in time. Mother Shen looked back at Shen Wanning, her eyes filled with deep worry. But Fu Chen's hand is already destroyed. How could he possibly operate to save your father? Mother Shen was overcome with frustration, and she began pounding weakly against Shen Wanning's shoulder. If you had not stubbornly sided with Su Haoyu and his mother, Fu Chen's hand would never have been ruined. Your father would not now be trapped inside that operating room, waiting helplessly for someone to come and rescue him. Tormented by anxiety, Shen Wanning raised her wrist to check the time. 30 full minutes had already slipped by, and there was still zero news regarding my whereabouts. She dialed her assistant's phone number and screamed furiously into the receiver. Why have you still not found Fu Chen? Jingbei is not such a huge place, how can you fail to track down one single man? Her assistant's stammering voice came through from the other end of the call. CEO Shen, after Sir left the family mansion, he seems to have vanished entirely from Jingbei. We simply cannot find any trace of him. Shen Wanning's heart sank down into utter despair upon hearing that reply. Overhearing those words from the phone, Mother Shen nearly collapsed and slumped down onto the cold hospital floor. What are we supposed to do now? Fu Chen is gone. Are you going to let your own father die? Shen Wanning clenched her fist so tight her knuckles whitened, and she reopened our old chat window on her cell phone. The very last message we shared dated back 3 whole months prior. Shen Wanning typed out a brand new urgent message directed toward me. Fu Chen, I am giving you 5 minutes. Get over to the hospital immediately and save my father. If anything happens to my dad, I will never forgive you. As soon as she hit send, a bright red exclamation mark popped up right beside her text. Shen Wanning stumbled backward 1 step in shock. She had never imagined I had blocked her across every single possible form of contact. A crushing wave of pure panic washed over her entire body. Just at that moment, Su Haoyu hurried over after hearing what had befallen Elder Shen. When he spotted Mother Shen sitting on the floor, he quickly stepped forward to try and help her get back onto her feet. "Auntie, why are you sitting down on the floor? Uncle Shin is surely going to pull through this ordeal." Mother Shin lifted her hand and delivered a heavy, sharp slap straight across Su Haoyu's cheek. "Get away from me this instant. If it were not for you, Fu Chen's hand would never have been destroyed." Su Haoyu held his stinging cheek, a flash of malicious hatred flickering across his face before he quickly concealed that expression. He turned his gaze toward Shin Wanning and spoke in an aggrieved tone. "Wanning, I only just learned about Uncle's accident and came over to see whether there is anything I can do to assist." Fu Chen clearly knows Uncle's life hangs in the balance, yet he chooses to hide himself away at such a critical time. Who can say whether he is doing this intentionally? Listening to Su Haoyu's insinuations, Shin Wanning's face twisted into an uglier and uglier scowl. She snapped sharply at Su Haoyu, "The internal matters of the Shin family are none of your business for you to comment on." Right after those words left her lips, the heavy doors of the operating room swung open. The doctor walked out with an apologetic, defeated look spread across his face. "I am truly sorry. We exhausted every possible measure, but we could not save him." Meanwhile, at a private airport within Jingbei, I sat beside a large window gazing out at the scenery stretching out before me, my facial features giving away nothing of my inner thoughts. All of a sudden, a pair of hands extended a formal document over toward me. I glanced down and saw the 50% equity stake printed on the papers, genuine surprise flickering across my face. Su Shan sat down opposite me, a faint smile curling up along his lips. "This is what I promised you all that time ago. Since we have agreed to cooperate together, I must offer you my full sincerity. After all, I spent 5 whole years trying to recruit you. 5 years in the past, Su Shan, the head of the Su family, had reached out to me. He hoped to form a partnership with me to develop a brand new anti-cancer pharmaceutical drug. However, their research laboratory was located overseas, and back then I was unwilling to leave my hometown. Without the slightest hesitation, I flat out rejected Su Shan's business proposal, and Shin Wanning had known all about this. I took hold of the document he handed over, then lifted my damaged right hand up so Su Shan could see it clearly. My voice carried a thick note of self-mockery as I addressed him. "I assume Mr. Su is already fully aware of my current condition. My right hand is completely ruined." Su Shan's eyes fell upon my injured hand, and there was pity mixed in with another unreadable emotion within his stare. "Fu Chen, you ought to understand that what I value has never been your physical hands, but your outstanding talent and capability." Having said that, Su Shan stretched his hand out toward me across the table. "Fu Chen, welcome to our team." I looked down at the hand Su Shan offered me, and a genuine, relieved smile finally appeared on my face. I firmly shook his outstretched hand. "I look forward to working alongside you." Su Shan then pushed a photograph across the table in front of my eyes. "Shin Wanning's father suffered that terrible car accident 3 hours in the past. The entire Shin family is tearing Jingbei apart searching high and low for you." I picked up that photograph, and without even a moment's pause tossed it straight into the nearby trash bin. "My hand is destroyed. Even if they manage to track me down, there is nothing I would be able to do for them." Su Shan glanced toward the photo lying discarded inside the trash can, a subtle smile playing on his mouth. Then he spoke to the nearby airport staff member in a cheerful mood. "Let us prepare for takeoff." I watched the sprawling city slowly shrink and fade away outside the airplane window, and my tightly clenched hands finally relaxed at long last. "Shin Wanning, I wish you a lifetime filled with endless torment." Shin Wanning rushed all the way back home straight from the hospital. The second she pushed open the front entrance, a cold gust of wind swept across her face. She looked around every corner inside the mansion. And even though every object remained unchanged, an overwhelming sense of unease gnawed away at her. Su Haoyu followed closely behind her footsteps, his eyes sweeping over the opulent living room, traces of obvious greed surfacing in his gaze. Shin Wanning hurried toward the master bedroom. All of my personal belongings that once filled the closet were long since gone. The memory of me packing my things inside this very room remained vivid and fresh inside her mind. Su Haoyu stared at the now completely empty master bedroom, then reached out and took hold of Shin Wanning's hand. "Wanning, Fu Chen must have known that consuming the dragon saliva herb would trigger complications for my mother, so he had planned his escape all along." After hearing Su Haoyu's words, Shin Wanning lifted her phone and called her assistant, her tone ice cold. "No matter how high the cost may rise, you must locate Fu Chen. I am going to make him pay for my father's death." Shin Wanning was just about to end the phone call when her assistant spoke to her in a rush. CEO Shin, an urgent legal document was just delivered over to company headquarters. They say it comes from a law firm, should I bring it over to you? Shin Wanning furrowed her brows together, overcome with impatience. Pay it no mind. The very next day, Shin Wanning hosted a grand memorial service for her deceased father. Every guest in attendance was one of Jingbei's well-known, prominent business figures. She had just finished arranging all of the service's preparations when she spotted Su Hayu bustling around, greeting all the arriving and departing guests. The surrounding crowd watched Su Hayu move about, whispering mockingly and pointing at him behind his back. I heard Shin Wanning destroyed Fu Chen's hand entirely for the sake of this Su Hayu. And then old man Shin got into that fatal car accident, and ironically only Fu Chen could have saved his life. Is this not pure karma? Everyone remembers how Su Hayu abandoned Shin Wanning when the Shin family hit hard times in the past. Now that the Shin group stands at its peak, he crawls right back and stirs up all this terrible trouble for them. If not for him, Elder Shin would still be alive. What a sin. Look at how presumptuous Su Hayu acts. Does he truly believe he is now the master of the Shin household? As she listened to all those malicious whispers floating through the venue, Mother Shin's facial expression grew more and more hideous. She turned toward her daughter and asked the question weighing heavy on her heart. Have you still not managed to find Fu Chen? Shin Wanning scanned across the whole memorial venue, yet that familiar figure was nowhere to be seen. Not yet. But mother, do not worry. I will force him to pay the price for everything he has done. The memorial service officially commenced. As the filial daughter, Shin Wanning stepped up onto the stage to deliver a speech for all of the assembled guests. At the exact same time, the enormous large-screen display positioned behind her began playing a video showcasing Elder Shin's lifetime accomplishments. But the instant the screen powered on, every single person present could not help but gasp out loud in shock. What in the world is this? Shin Wanning spun around with a solemn look on her face and directed her gaze toward the huge screen. Surveillance footage from the day my mother's car accident took place was looping non-stop across the display. Within the video, Su Hayu sat behind the vehicle's steering wheel, glaring savagely toward my mother. He slammed his foot hard onto the gas pedal and crashed directly into her body. The car rolled over my mother, yet Su Hayu made no attempt whatsoever to hit the brakes. Instead, he reversed the car and ran over her a second time, until the person underneath the vehicle showed zero remaining signs of life. Upon witnessing this footage, Su Hayu sprinted onto the stage like a total madman, screaming at the top of his lungs. Shut that screen off. Are all of you people out of your minds? Shin Wanning shot a fierce glare at Su Hayu and grabbed him tightly by the arm. Did you not tell me this whole thing was merely a tragic accident? Su Hayu stared at Shin Wanning in total panic, shaking his head frantically back and forth. Wanning, listen to me carefully. This is deepfake video forged by Fu Chen. If he actually possessed real hard evidence, why would he wait until today to expose it? You absolutely cannot believe this. Shin Wanning shoved him away with brutal force. Su Hayu stumbled and crashed onto the ground, his face drained of all color. Shin Wanning glanced toward the stunned guests seated out in the audience. Suppressing the boiling anger building up inside her chest, and called out toward the backstage technical crew. Turn this display off right away. Today is my father's memorial service. Anyone who dares create chaos here will face my full wrath. But the staff members stared back at Shin Wanning with terrified expressions, stammering out their reply. CEO Shin, our back-end systems have been hacked. The IP address originates overseas. We have no way to take control of the big screen at this moment. Shin Wanning's face turned pitch black with rage. She snatched up a nearby chair, fully intending to hurl it and smash the large screen to pieces. In the next second, the content playing on screen switched over. Footage started rolling, showing the day Shin Wanning forced me to perform surgery for Su Hayu's mother. When every guest witnessed these terrible scenes, outrage swept across the entire crowd. Shin Wanning had used his own younger sister as leverage to compel Fu Chun into operating on the mother of the man who had murdered his parent. Such acts were utterly devoid of basic human conscience. Curses and angry shouts echoed throughout every corner of the memorial hall. Shin Wanning balled her hands into tight fists, her heart feeling as though it was being crushed beneath an enormous boulder, burning with fury and suffocating despair. Su Hayu seized this opening to scramble back up from the floor, grabbed Shin Wanning's hand and tried to sway her thinking. Wanning, this is all Fu Chen's elaborate conspiracy. He knew your father was fatally injured, yet he refused to come and save him, just so he could wait for this day and destroy every last bit of us. Shen Wanning looked straight at Su Haoyu and pushed him off of her once more. Right then, hordes of media reporters burst forcefully through the venue entrance doors. Countless camera lenses instantly locked onto Shen Wanning's figure. CEO Shen, rumors are circulating that you cheated on your husband, and you even helped Su Haoyu find a scapegoat for his crimes. Is it true you drove Fu Chen's younger sister to take her own life? Did you really ruin Fu Chen's surgical hands, which directly caused your own father's death because no other surgeon dared operate? In the dead of night, do you never fear your late father's spirit returning to haunt you? Earlier on, was it your doing that ruined the funeral for Fu Chen's mother and sister? And now your own father's memorial service has devolved into complete disaster. Is this what people refer to as karmic retribution? Shen Wanning listened to every one of those piercing questions cutting deep into her heart. She clenched her fists and shot a furious glare toward the surrounding crowd. All of you get out of my way. She tried shoving the reporters aside, but somebody gave her a powerful hard yank. She lost her balance, pitched forward, and tumbled right off the edge of the stage. Shen Wanning lay sprawled across the ground in a miserable state. Yet not a single onlooker stepped forward to offer her a helping hand. Only the non-stop, blinding flashing of camera flashes kept targeting her fallen form. In that exact instant, a memory flashed through Shen Wanning's mind. She pictured the helpless look I wore lying defeated on the ground in the past, and a sharp pang shot through her heart. Fu Chen, do you truly hate me this deeply? Do you take every ounce of pain you once endured and give it all back to me bit by bit? Su Haoyu attempted to move forward and lift Shen Wanning up, but just at that moment a police car pulled up to the main entrance. Two police officers climbed out of the vehicle and walked straight toward Su Haoyu. One of the officers spoke out loud. Su Haoyu, you are suspected of drunk driving and a hit-and-run homicide. Please come along with us. Su Haoyu looked toward Shen Wanning in utter terror and desperation. He grabbed tightly onto her hands. Wanning, save me. That worthless trash Fu Chen is trying to destroy my whole life. Shen Wanning stared at Su Haoyu's twisted, hideous face and delivered a heavy slap right across his cheek. What right do you have to slander Fu Chen in front of me? None of this would ever have happened if you had not killed Fu Chen's mother. Su Haoyu clutched his stinging cheek, staring at Shen Wanning in total disbelief. He roared loudly, Wanning, we are supposed to stand united through everything. Do not let Fu Chen brainwash you. Can you not clearly see what is unfolding right now? Fu Chen is a ruthless, cold-blooded bastard. No sooner had those words left his mouth than another loud crack echoed through the hall. Shen Wanning struck Su Haoyu's face with yet another brutal slap. Shut your mouth. I will never stand side by side with scum like you. If you had not murdered Fu Chen's mother, none of these tragedies would ever have unfolded. Su Haoyu held his hurting face, a mocking sneer stretching across his lips. Shen Wanning, how can you act so hypocritical? You brought every bit of this misfortune onto yourself. You were the one who willingly aided me in the beginning. You said Fu Chen's mother was old anyway, and if she died then so be it. Now Fu Chen is getting his revenge against you, yet you try shifting all of the blame entirely onto my shoulders? Shen Wanning advanced one step forward, her hands clamping tight around Su Haoyu's throat. She snarled at him, Su Haoyu, who are you to judge me? If my memory serves correctly, your mother is still lying inside the hospital, is she not? Su Haoyu's face turned a dark, bruised purple from lack of oxygen. He struggled to gasp out his words. What? What exactly are you planning on doing? Shen Wanning violently threw him away from her grip and snarled her threat. I will do to your mother exactly what you did to Fu Chen's mother. Panicked out of his mind, Su Haoyu scrambled to get back up onto his feet, but police officers stepped forward and snapped handcuffs onto his wrists. He thrashed around and shouted loudly. Shen Wanning, you cannot treat me like this. Shen Wanning stood rooted where she was, coldly watching as Su Haoyu was dragged away by law enforcement. The memorial service ended up turning into a total farce. The once highly respected Elder Shen received a hasty, rushed burial. Hardly anybody showed up to bid him a final farewell. Mother Shen stood staring at Elder Shen's name carved upon the tombstone. She lifted her hand and landed a fierce slap across Shen Wanning's face. She cursed at her daughter in bitter rage. You unfilial child. If you had not foolishly messed around with that idiot Su Haoyu, your father would not be resting inside this grave. Your father was such a proud man. If he knew his reputation had been completely ruined after his passing, he would never be able to rest in peace. Shen Wanning kept her head hung low, muttering under her breath. I will find Fu Chen. I swear I will. Right as those words left her lips, her assistant came rushing over in a state of panic. CEO Shin, terrible news has arrived. Disaster has struck our company. There has been a massive reshuffle among our shareholders. Multiple individuals have arrived at corporate headquarters today claiming they have acquired large blocks of Shin Group stock. I just completed my verification. Every share that once belonged to Mr. Every single share that once belonged to Fu had been completely sold off. A bone-chilling shiver shot straight down Shin Wan-ning's spine. Mother Shin's legs gave way beneath her, and she crashed heavily onto the cold ground. She screamed at the top of her lungs, overcome by utter despair. He intends to wipe the entire Shin family off the map. Shin Wan-ning did not even spare a second to check on her collapsed mother. She spun around on her heels and sprinted toward the company headquarters as fast as her legs could carry her. The instant she pulled up outside the building, a huge agitated crowd had already gathered right at the main entrance. People shouted loudly, demanding that Shin Wan-ning step forward and give them a proper answer. Glancing through the car's rearview mirror, the assistant caught sight of Shin Wan-ning's deathly pale complexion. His voice shook as he stammered out his bad news. The shareholders are all insisting you come out and address this crisis. Multiple partner firms have cited the massive share dump and internal chaos within the Shin Group as grounds to terminate our cooperation contracts. Shin Wan-ning's face darkened to a terrifying shade, and her tone dropped to an icy, lethal low. Is there still zero trace of Fu Chen? How can a living human being simply vanish without a trace all across Jingbei? Her gaze drifted toward the nearby police station, her eyes clouded over with unreadable, twisted thoughts. She pushed open the car door and marched straight inside the police station building. I would like to file a missing person report. My husband has disappeared, she told the officer behind the counter. This was the only plausible solution she could think of to track Fu Chen down at this desperate moment. The police officer glanced over at Shin Wan-ning, took the marriage certificate she handed over, and began typing entries into the computer system. After a short pause, the officer slid the document back across the counter toward her. He studied her with obvious suspicion written all over his features. You two are already officially divorced. Why are you here trying to locate your ex-husband? Shin Wan-ning froze completely where she stood, unable to process what she had just heard. That cannot possibly be true. My husband and I have never gone through any divorce proceedings, she shot back immediately. Disdain flickered plainly across the law enforcement officer's face. Court records show your divorce was finalized 5 days ago. It was a formal court ruling. Now you turn up searching for your former spouse. Do not tell me you are having second thoughts after everything is settled. He waved his hand dismissively, showing no patience for her outburst. I have encountered countless women just like you. You get divorced and then instantly regret your decision. Shin Wan-ning stumbled backward several steps, her emotions spiraling into wild hysteria. This is impossible, absolutely impossible. I never signed any divorce paperwork whatsoever. How could I possibly be divorced from Fu Chen? There has to be some kind of system error on your end, she shrieked. The officer refused to indulge her fit of rage any further. He pointed toward the southeast direction with a cold, unyielding tone. Head down that road. The courthouse sits 3 kilometers from here. Take your complaints directly to them. Shin Wan-ning glanced toward the courthouse direction and bolted out of the police station doorway. The second she reached the courthouse entrance, a sharp, stabbing agony seized her heart out of nowhere, making each breath painfully difficult. She forced herself to push through the overwhelming physical discomfort. Right as she was about to step inside the building, a familiar voice called out to her from nearby. Shin Wan-ning whipped her head around and found Fu Chen's personal lawyer standing right there at the entrance. The lawyer wore a calm, unruffled expression as he spoke to her. President Shin, what brings you to the courthouse on this day? Your official divorce certificate alongside Mr. Fu's should already have been delivered to you by now. Have you not received it? In that split second, every thought inside Shin Wan-ning's mind turned completely blank. Only those 2 haunting words, divorce certificate, kept echoing on a loop inside her head. She clamped her hand down tight around the lawyer's arm, her voice rising into a loud, urgent demand. What exactly did you just say? What divorce certificate are you talking about? Confusion crossed over the lawyer's features as he stared back at her. I am referring to the divorce certificate for you and Mr. Fu, of course. You personally signed all the necessary documents when I visited you inside the hospital ward. Have you somehow forgotten that moment? A violent jolt ran through Shin Wan-ning's body, and her iron-tight grip slowly loosened. It felt as though every last bit of her soul had been drained clean out of her body, leaving her utterly powerless. Ever since the terrible accident involving his younger sister, Fu Chen had secretly been plotting his escape and breaking free from her. Xinhuan Ning raced back toward the Xin Group headquarters like a woman driven insane. The angry crowd of investors still packed the area right outside the front doors. The moment they caught sight of her figure, they surged forward all at once, shouting furiously. "Xinhuan Ning, we purchased these shares using our hard-earned money. On what grounds is the Xin Group refusing to recognize our holdings? Xinhuan Ning, is the Xin Group facing a catastrophic financial collapse? Are you dumping shares to liquidate your assets? The Xin Group owes us a proper explanation today. We will not leave this spot until we get answers." Xinhuan Ning was jostled and shoved from all directions, treated no better than a condemned criminal. Yet she acted as if none of their shouts and accusations were even reaching her ears. She kept pressing forward step by step, with the furious mob trailing closely behind her heels. Once she made it into her private office, she shoved the door open hard. A single file folder rested neatly on top of her desk. Her hands trembled uncontrollably as she reached out to pick it up, creeping dread building deep within her eyes. All of a sudden, one of the shareholders lunged forward and snatched the folder straight out of her shaking grasp. "Is this some top-secret internal company document? Xinhuan Ning, you keep refusing to acknowledge us minority shareholders. Is the corporation on the verge of total bankruptcy?" Ice-cold fury burned within Xinhuan Ning's eyes as she fixed her gaze on the man. "Give my property back to me," she said in a frigid, sharp voice. The man's face instantly flushed bright red with boiling anger. "Who do you imagine you still are? Do you still fancy yourself the almighty President Shun? You only hold 35% of all outstanding shares now. The rest are in our possession. If we convene an official shareholder meeting, we hold every legal right to vote you out of your position." Insults poured toward Xinhuan Ning nonstop from every corner of the crowd, but she remained completely unfazed. She tore the folder forcefully out of the man's hands and ripped it wide open. A bright red divorce certificate lay exposed inside the folder. The very last flicker of hope deep inside her heart finally died out completely. When the surrounding crowd caught sight of that document, every single one of them froze on the spot. Xinhuan Ning and Fu Chen were truly divorced. Halfway across the ocean in the United States, I sat on a public park bench holding two tiny newborn kittens in my arms. A small handwritten poster sat in front of me, reading "Kittens for Sale." A figure walked over toward me all at once and spoke in a soft, playful tone. "Does the father of these little ones happen to be for sale as well?" I lifted my head and met Su Shan's strikingly beautiful eyes. I glanced cautiously all around my surroundings, then lowered my voice to a quiet murmur. "The actual owner of these kittens stepped away to use the restroom. I am merely keeping watch over them temporarily." Su Shan sat down unhurriedly right in front of me, completely unfazed by my reply. I rolled my eyes, unable to hold back my helpless amusement. "President Su, I never realized before that you enjoy cracking such light-hearted jokes." Su Shan tilted her head and looked me over, her features turning entirely serious. "I am not joking with you at all." Before I could come up with any sort of fitting response, my mobile phone suddenly rang, breaking the quiet moment between us. Su Shan let out a soft little chuckle. "I was only teasing you. Go ahead and take that incoming call." I let out a long breath of relief and answered the phone call. The second the line connected, I heard my friend's urgent voice calling from back in China. "Have you seen what is trending all over Jingbei's news feeds? Word has spread that you completely destroyed Xinhuan Ning's father's memorial service. Fu Chen, I never would have guessed you were the kind of man who would make them taste their own bitter medicine. News about your divorce from Xinhuan Ning is blowing up across every corner of Jingbei. That move was absolutely legendary. You are a role model for all of us." My fingers tightened slightly around the surface of my phone. I opened up the domestic news application on my device. Xinhuan Ning's name dominated nearly every single spot on the trending hot topic list. Xinhuan Ning divorce, Xinhuan Ning fabricates evidence, drives Fu Chen's younger sister to suicide, Xinhuan Ning a devil in human skin. The comments sections underneath each post were overflowing with furious online users. Xinhuan Ning is utter garbage. With Fu Chen's unmatched talent, he could have built an extraordinary life for himself. Everything he worked for got ruined because of her. Just think, she betrayed her own husband for a man who once abandoned her. She deserves every bit of misfortune landing on her now. She deliberately crippled the skilled hands of a brilliant surgeon. No wonder no doctor could save her own father. It serves her perfectly right. What Shen Wanning is enduring right now is nothing but well-earned karmic retribution. I stared at screen full of hateful remarks directed toward Shen Wanning, yet my heart stayed utterly numb. Not the faintest ripple of emotion stirred within my chest. I powered off my phone and turned my gaze toward Su Shan sitting beside me. You were behind all of this, were you not? I asked her in a slow, steady voice. Su Shan did not attempt to deny my accusation in the slightest. I promised you long ago I would make both her and Su Hayu pay for every wrong they committed. Memories of that previous phone conversation I'd shared with Su Shan crossed my mind, and I gave her a small nod. Thank you. Su Shan said nothing in reply. Instead, she reached out and took hold of my hand. Come along. I am going to take you someplace. I glanced down toward the two tiny kittens still resting safely in my arms, filled with a moment's hesitation. But their real owner still has not returned from the restroom. Su Shan simply reached over and gently lifted one of the kittens out of my grasp. I will adopt both of these two kittens. Someone will come shortly to sort everything out with their original owner. You do not need to worry yourself over this. Hearing those words, my lingering worry finally faded away. Su Shan drove me all the way out to a lake located in the city's suburbs. The moment we climbed out of the car, a cemetery came into full view before our eyes. I looked over toward Su Shan, thoroughly confused. Why have you brought me to this place? Su Shan did not give me a direct answer. She simply gestured for me to follow her and walked straight inside the cemetery grounds. We eventually came to a stop in front of two brand new, freshly erected tombstones. My eyes locked onto the names carved deep into the cold stone, and my footsteps faltered mid-stride. The next instant, I sank down onto my knees right in front of those graves. Mom, sis. Su Shan stood quietly a short distance behind my back. To ensure Shen Wanning would never again be able to use your mother and sister as leverage against you, I had their remains transferred here to rest side by side. I hope you will not mind that I took care of this matter without first consulting you. I wiped the wet tears away from my cheeks and reached out my fingertips to trace the names carved across the tombstone surface. Slowly I got back onto my feet and faced Su Shan with complete sincerity shining in my eyes. Thank you. Su Shan gave me a quiet nod. This was part of the promise I made when we first agreed to enter our business partnership. A hint of genuine surprise flickered across my face. A trace of sorrow flashed within Su Shan's eyes as she spoke softly, You have suffered through so much unbearable pain. I lifted my head and looked at Su Shan's warm, glowing face. The deepest, most painful wounds buried inside my heart finally started to mend little by little. Back in Jingbei, a deafening crash echoed through the Shen family mansion. A wine bottle slipped out of Shen Wanning's grasp and shattered into countless sharp pieces across the floor. Thick, heavy fumes of alcohol hung thick in the surrounding air. Shen Wanning collapsed limply across the sofa, completely beaten down by everything that had unfolded. Fu Chen, why would you do something this cruel to me? You used to love me so deeply. How could you leave me like this? Vivid memories of all our happy days together kept replaying nonstop inside her mind. Suddenly a pair of hands brushed tenderly against her cheek. Shen Wanning jolted awake and threw herself straight into that person's arms. Husband, you have come back. I knew you would not truly abandon me, did I not? A vicious glint flashed for a split second in the eyes of the man holding her, before he swiftly concealed that dark look. His voice came out soft and gentle. I will never leave your side. Shen Wanning wrapped both her arms tightly around his neck and tilted her head upward for a kiss. But in the very next second, she snapped fully awake and shoved Su Hayu hard onto the floor. Get away from me right now. You are not my husband, she screamed. Su Hayu sat there sprawled across the floor, his face painted with hurt and humiliation. Wanning, Fu Chen was nothing more than my replacement all along. Now that I have returned, it was only natural for him to step aside. Shen Wanning stepped forward and grabbed Su Hayu firmly by the collar of his shirt. Who in the world do you think you are? How dare you call my husband your substitute? Staring directly at Su Hayu's face, Shen Wanning sobered up significantly. Nothing but unbridled disgust and loathing filled her gaze. Why are you here? Weren't you taken away by the police authorities? Su Hayu looked up at her with pleading eyes, desperately grabbing a hold of Shen Wanning's hand. Wanning, have you forgotten? You personally arranged for another person to take the blame for my crimes. Reopening this investigation is far from simple. If they dig deeper into the case, you will inevitably get dragged into this mess as well. Shen Wanning's expression darkened sharply as she glared furiously down at Su Hayu. Are you trying to threaten me? Su Hayu let out a low, quiet chuckle. Waning, I understand you acted out of rage the other day. I hold no resentment toward you for that. But you have to understand this, our fates are tied together. Acting as if he had already secured total victory, Su Hayu pulled Shenwan Ning into his embrace. You were the one who forced Fu Chen's younger sister to bear all the blame. If misfortune falls upon me, Waning, you will not be able to escape the fallout either. Why can we not just stay together? With those words spoken, Su Hayu leaned in, attempting to kiss her. In an instant, Shenwan Ning landed a brutal stinging slap right across his cheek. Do you really believe you can intimidate me? Shenwan Ning used nearly every ounce of strength inside her body. Su Hayu's back crashed violently against the coffee table, and a muffled groan escaped his lips. Shenwan Ning stepped forward and ruthlessly stomped down onto the back of Su Hayu's hand. Su Hayu, you have just reminded me of one critical detail. Your mother is still receiving medical treatment at a hospital under my name, is she not? As those words left her mouth, Shenwan Ning pulled out her phone and called the hospital staff. Immediately halt every form of medical treatment for Su Haoyu's mother. Panic washed over Su Haoyu's features the second he heard that order. Shen Weining, you cannot do this to me. Shen Weining stared down at him and curled her lips into a cold sneer. Su Haoyu, this is the price you pay for driving my husband away. Every bit of suffering that Fu Chen endured, I will pay back to you 10 times over. Right after she finished speaking, Su Haoyu's phone began ringing loudly. It was an incoming call from his own mother. Over the phone line, Mother Su's frantic wailing echoed out clearly. Haoyu, those heartless hospital workers cut off my medication. They even took me off the ventilator. Hurry and tell Shen Weining to fire every single one of them. Now that Fu Chen and Shen Weining are divorced, the position of Shen family son-in-law definitely belongs to you. Let us see who in Jingbei will dare to treat me poorly now. That trick you taught me, faking illness to frame Fu Chen, worked perfectly. It pushed them straight toward divorce. Su Hayu listened to his mother's rambling, yet before he could stop her, Shen Weining snatched the phone right out of his hand. Murderous darkness burned in Shen Weining's eyes, and her voice turned bone-chillingly frigid. So all of your mother's post-surgery complications were completely staged, just to frame Fu Chen? Su Hayu shook his head in sheer terror. No, that is not what happened. My mother simply felt everything that should have belonged to me got stolen by Fu Chen. She only wanted to teach him a lesson. Images of Mother Su's medical test reports flashed through Shen Weining's mind, quickly followed by the memory of Fu Chen nearly getting devoured by a shark out on the open sea. Shen Weining kicked Su Hayu hard in the chest. Not only did you murder Fu Chen's mother, you repeatedly goaded your own mother to target Fu Chen again and again. Sharp, crippling pain exploded across Su Haoyu's chest, and a mouthful of bright red blood spilled out from his lips. No trace of the affection Shen Weining once held for him remained in her eyes. Only pure, unfiltered hatred was left behind. Shen Weining lifted one of her hands, and 2 burly bodyguards immediately stepped into the room. She issued her order in a cold, unfeeling tone. Drag him over to the ancestral hall. He will remain locked inside for exactly the same length of time my husband was trapped there. Su Hayu stared up at Shen Weining, overcome with absolute horror, and screamed at the top of his lungs. Shen Weining, you cannot do this to me. Those 2 Tibetan mastiffs will tear me apart. But Shen Weining only gazed down on him with icy indifference. If you knew those dogs would turn violent, why did you stop me from saving Fu Chen back then? The bodyguards dragged Su Hayu out of the room like a lifeless sack. He struggled wildly, shouting Shen Weining's name over and over. What is so special about Fu Chen? Why are you punishing me for his sake? Shen Weining's expression stayed ice-cold, while her hands clenched so tight her knuckles whitened. Moments later, Su Hayu was thrown inside the ancestral hall. The building felt eerie and oppressive under the cover of night. From deep within the pitch-black darkness, 2 pairs of glowing green eyes flickered with menace. Su Hayu pounded desperately against the heavy solid wooden doors. Let me out. Somebody please open these doors and let me escape. The only reply he received was the ferocious, thunderous barking echoing throughout the entire hall. The next second, the 2 large hounds lunged out from the shadows like predators spotting their prey. They pounced straight onto Su Hayu and sank their sharp teeth deep into his wrist. Agonizing, soul-tearing pain ripped through his whole body. Su Hayu was teetering on the brink of a full mental breakdown. He finally managed to dig a spare backup phone out of his pocket. Just as he was about to dial for emergency help, the device started ringing unexpectedly. It was his mother calling. Su Hayu answered in a frantic rush. Before he could cry out for help, a blood-curdling shriek blared out from the other end of the call. So many sharks, I do not want to die. I beg you, please let me go. Every drop of color drained instantly from Su Hayu's face. Mom, what is happening to you? Release my mother this instant. If anything harms her, I swear I will destroy every last one of you. No matter how loud Su Hayu roared, all he heard in return was wave after wave of his mother's tortured screams. Shen Wanning, I beg you. Spare us. I know I was wrong. I truly admit my mistakes. Su Hayu dropped onto his knees like a pitiful stray dog, kowtowing violently toward the ancestral hall doors. He smashed his forehead against the hard floor until blood trickled down his skin, while the dogs kept gnawing at the tendons inside his hands. Yet the heavy doors stayed tightly sealed, not moving one bit. The Tibetan mastiffs grew bored with mauling only his hands. One of them clamped its powerful jaws onto Su Hayu's thigh and started dragging him further into the endless darkness of the hall. Su Hayu could not tell whether his violent convulsions came from overwhelming pain or paralyzing terror. Shen Wanning, I am begging you. Set me free. I know I have done wrong. I promise I will vanish completely from Jingbei. I will never show my face before you or Fu Chen ever again. The only responses to his pleas were the dog's excited barks and the numbing agony spreading all over his body. Another loud crash reverberated inside the Shen family living room. Shen Wanning furiously hurled the glass she was holding directly at the television screen. The display shattered into countless fragments the very moment impact landed. You are all useless incompetents. You cannot even track down one single man, she spat out coldly. Her assistant stood off to one side, trembling uncontrollably. President Shen, we have gone through every flight record and travel route. There is absolutely no trace of Mr. Fu anywhere. It is as if he vanished completely off the face of this earth. Rage burned hot across Shen Wanning's features, and she roared out loud. He is a real living human being. How can he disappear without leaving any trail behind? A sudden thought clicked inside Shen Wanning's mind. Her eyes shifted toward the security camera mounted beside the main doorway. Pull up the surveillance footage from the exact day Fu Chen left the estate. Do it right now, she ordered immediately. The butler quickly pulled up the saved video recordings from that day. On screen, right after I walked out of the mansion gates, I climbed straight into a waiting Maybach. The car window rolled down slowly, revealing a woman sitting inside the luxury vehicle. Shen Wanning stared hard at that license plate-free automobile, her gaze turning dark and heavy. Find out who the legal owner of this car is without delay. Fu Chen has no remaining family members left within Jingbei. I have met every single one of his acquaintances. Who exactly is this woman? Wild, manic emotions burned fiercely within her chest. A twisted, overwhelming possessive urge threatened to consume her whole mind. Right now she held only one single thought: find her husband. Shen Wanning grabbed her car keys and prepared to rush out of the house, when Wang Ma from the old estate came running toward her in a panic. Miss, terrible news. Madam suffered a sudden brain hemorrhage under the stress from the old president's funeral and all the company's recent troubles. She has already been rushed over to the hospital emergency ward. Shen Wanning sprinted out of the residence without delay. The moment she arrived at the medical facility, the doctor approached her with a grim look on his face while holding a critical condition notice. President Shen, your mother is experiencing severe internal bleeding, yet we are unable to locate exactly where the bleeding originates. If this situation continues, there is a very high probability she will slip into a permanent vegetative state. Shen Wanning froze on the spot, and the pen in her grasp slipped clattering down onto the floor tiles. She grabbed the doctor roughly by the collar, her eyes blazing with fury. What do you mean you cannot locate the source of bleeding? There are so many of you working here. Are all of you doctors completely useless? I have poured so much funding into this hospital, and this is the answer I receive in such a critical moment? The doctor looked back at Shen Wanning helplessly and let out a weary sigh of resignation. Surgeries of this caliber demand far more than just experience and technical skill. Raw natural talent is absolutely essential. Truly gifted genius surgeons are extremely rare to come by. Dr. Fu was such a once-in-a-generation talent for Jingbei. Now that he is gone, a high-risk complicated operation like this lies far beyond our current capabilities. Shen Wanning stumbled backward one full step. Deep regret slowly surfaced within her eyes. Why did everything have to turn out this horribly? The memory of the day the two of us first met remained crystal clear in her thoughts. She had believed she was certain to die amid that gunfight, but I had appeared like some divine savior and dragged her back from the very gates of death. From that fateful day onward, I had taken firm root deep inside her heart. Xinhuan Ning sank down onto the floor in total despair, staring toward the glowing red status light hanging above the operating room doors. Silent tears streamed steadily down her cheeks. Xinhuan Ning lifted her own hand and delivered a sharp, hard slap across her face. I failed Fu Chen. I destroyed him, and I destroyed my own parents' last shot at survival. She kept punching herself over and over across her chest, trying desperately to ease the suffocating torment gnawing at her insides. Just at that moment, her assistant hurried over toward her location. Seeing Xinhuan Ning in such a pitiful state, he could not help but feel a twinge of pity. President Shen, I have urgent news to report. Su Haoyu has managed to escape confinement. He found out what happened to his mother. And now he is cooperating with news media for a live broadcast, publicly demanding you give him an explanation. Xinhuan Ning slowly pushed herself back onto her feet and took the mobile phone her assistant handed to her. On screen sat Su Haoyu, positioned in front of a livestream camera, his face covered all over in fresh bruises. He slowly rolled up his shirt sleeves, exposing shocking, gruesome wounds covering his skin underneath. Putting on a performance of utter misery, he began speaking to the audience watching the stream. Hello everyone. My name is Su Haoyu. For the sake of Fu Chen, Xinhuan Ning drove my mother out into deep ocean waters and left her to get eaten alive by sharks. She locked me away inside an ancestral hall and unleashed vicious hounds to maul my body until my hand tendons were torn apart. Every single crime she has committed is pure unadulterated evil. Instantly, the livestream comments section exploded with thousands upon thousands of messages. This woman is absolutely psychotic. I still clearly remember everything that happened to Fu Chen not long ago. Now she is torturing yet another man. Xinhuan Ning is literally a devil walking in human flesh, with no shred of humanity left inside her. I heard Xinhuan Ning's mother was hospitalized because of a brain hemorrhage. The doctors cannot find where her bleeding originates, so she might end up a vegetable. That sure feels like karma. Su Haoyu read through all those netizen comments siding with him, and a vicious glint sparkled in his eyes. He kept addressing the livestream viewers. Those surveillance clips making it look like I harmed Fu Chen's mother were all fake AI deepfake footage fabricated by Xinhuan Ning. She created those falsified videos just to frame me, all so she could justify herself to Fu Chen. My mother barely survived her illness only to get devoured by sharks. How can I possibly let such injustice slide? The comments section was overflowing with furious public outrage. Xinhuan Ning, pay for your crimes with your own life. Xinhuan Ning, come out and offer a public apology. She absolutely owes Su Haoyu a full explanation. Su Haoyu lost his mother, and his hands are permanently ruined. How is he supposed to go on living the rest of his life? Xinhuan Ning must take complete responsibility for all of this. Watching the flood of supportive comments rolling in, a smug self-satisfied smirk spread across Su Haoyu's lips. Just as Su Haoyu was soaking up wave after wave of public sympathy during his livestream, a random viewer's message suddenly shot to the very top of the chat box and blew everything apart. This single message threw Su Haoyu's carefully constructed victim act straight into total ruin. Su Haoyu is lying. Xinhuan Ning just dropped solid proof online, the chat read, and every word cut deep into Su Haoyu's fabricated story. The evidence laid bare how Su Haoyu had left Xinhuan Ning purely for wealth, and how he'd plotted to push Fu Chen out of the picture long ago. He was the one who forced Fu Chen to plunge down into the dark ocean depths to retrieve medicine, an order that nearly cost Fu Chen his life. Cold panic flashed across Su Haoyu's face the moment his eyes landed on those damning lines scrolling across his screen. His hands shook badly as he grabbed his phone and tapped the shared link without a second thought. Right there on Xinhuan Ning's social media profile was a full chronological breakdown of Su Haoyu's departure, plus every detail of his overseas lifestyle. Every shameful secret he had worked so hard to bury was now wide open for the whole internet to witness. When the Xin Group once fell into terrible financial trouble, Su Haoyu had dumped Xinhuan Ning without mercy and fled abroad with a wealthy older woman. Once that rich woman grew tired of keeping him, his lavish, expensive lifestyle could no longer keep running. That was when he turned to work as a high-end male escort to maintain the fancy life he refused to give up. Compromising private photos of Su Haoyu began surfacing one after another, stunning every single person watching the live broadcast. Terror flooded Su Haoyu's mind, and he jammed his thumb down hard to power off his device, staring directly into the livestream camera with wild, frightened eyes. "It is not like that. All of this is nothing but vicious slander," he stammered, voice trembling as he tried to salvage his reputation. But online viewers had already seen the hard evidence, and not a single netizen was willing to trust a single word coming out of his mouth. "Have you got no sense of shame at all? You are nothing more than a high-priced gigolo," one angry comment blasted across the screen. "Quit playing the poor, helpless victim. You are just trying to manipulate us online so you can squeeze out some benefits for yourself. This whole mess between a rotten woman and a male escort is absolutely laughable," another user wrote in disgust. "You do not deserve to drag Fu Chen's good name down into the mud alongside yours." Countless furious messages kept pouring in non-stop, hammering Su Haoyu from every direction. He could no longer hold back his boiling rage, and he lifted his phone high before smashing it violently against the hard ground. "To hell with every last one of you," he roared out in complete frustration. Halfway across the ocean in America, I had just stepped out from the lab building when my mobile phone started ringing loudly in my pocket. It was an overseas call coming straight from back in Jingbei. "Fu Chen, have you caught wind of what is trending right now?" my friend's excited voice crackled through the phone speaker. "Su Haoyu and Xinhuan Ning are tearing each other apart in public. It is total chaos, both sides are getting destroyed. I also got word that Xinhuan Ning's mother suffered a catastrophic brain hemorrhage, leading to severe cerebral hypoxia. She is basically stuck in a permanent vegetative state now. Do you not think this is well-deserved karma?" My fingers tightened slightly around the body of my phone, yet there was zero emotional stir inside of my chest. I answered in a calm, flat tone, "Whatever becomes of those two people does not concern me in the slightest any longer." Once I ended the call, curiosity still got the better of me, and I pulled up the latest domestic news feeds. Xinhuan Ning and Su Haoyu's names dominated every single hot search ranking on the trending lists. Right then, a slender feminine hand set a steaming latte down neatly right in front of me. I lifted my head and locked eyes with Su Shan, whose gaze held layers of unspoken meaning. Su Shan spoke slowly, watching my facial expression closely. "Watching them rip each other apart like rabid wild animals. How does that make you feel inside?" I picked up the coffee cup, took one small sip, and slowly shook my head. "Their troubles are none of my business anymore. Right now my only focus is finishing that product I owe you," I told her honestly. Su Shan halted her footsteps and twisted around to look directly at me, a little confused. "Oh, me?" I nodded earnestly toward her, remembering all the favors she had done for me. "You have gone out of your way to help me countless times, especially with everything regarding my mother and my younger sister. I am truly grateful. The only way I know how to repay your kindness is to get this new drug fully developed as quickly as humanly possible." The gentle smile on Su Shan's face faded little by little. She balled up her fist and raised it toward me, yet in the end she let her arm fall and let out a helpless sigh. "Fu Chen, I swear, there are moments when you are genuinely completely heartless." I froze where I stood, still processing her words, and Su Shan had already turned and begun walking away at a brisk pace. She called over her shoulder as she kept moving forward. "Since you insist you owe me a favor, then stay in my debt. Preferably for the rest of your entire life." I stared blankly at her retreating figure, totally thrown off by her strange remark, and hurried to chase after her. "Su Shan, what on earth are you implying? Are you planning to make me work for you for the rest of my life?" Su Shan rolled her eyes with a deadpan look on her face. "Who was it over in Jingbei that kept calling you an unparalleled genius?" Back in Jingbei, Xinhuan Ning sat beside the large window inside her mansion, and the whole room hung heavy with an eerie, bone-chilling atmosphere. Her assistant stepped forward and handed over a thick paper file, speaking in a respectful formal tone. "Based on our thorough investigation, that luxury Maybach vehicle belongs to the Shu family." Xinhuan Ning's fingers froze mid-air, and she stared at him in utter shock. "The Shu family? That century-old prominent household in Jingbei? The Shu family whose status in the city is completely unshakable?" The assistant gave her a firm nod of confirmation. Half a month ago, the eldest young lady of the Shu family, Su Shan, returned home from abroad. She purchased that brand new Maybach. The car carries no official license plate, yet it is granted free passage anywhere across Jingbei. There is no doubt Mr. Fu climbed into Miss Shu's automobile that day. Upon hearing Su Shan's name, Xinhuan Ning's eyebrows knotted together even tighter with rage. She had known all about Su Shan's quiet crush on me going all the way back 5 years ago. Su Shan had reached out to me in those days. hoping to bring me onto her company's new product research team to keep me from leaving the country. Xinhuan Ning had thrown together a whole proposal within just 7 short days, locking me firmly under her control right beneath her nose. She stared hard at Su Shan's photograph inside the file, then tore the picture violently into tiny shredded pieces. "Su Shan, do not even dream of snatching Fu Chen away from me," she snarled through gritted teeth. At that exact moment, the assistant's mobile phone started buzzing with an incoming call. After listening briefly, he lifted his head to meet Xinhuan Ning's eyes with a grave, grim expression. "President Xin, the men who kidnapped Mr. Fu have all been apprehended by authorities. According to their full confession, Su Haoyu was the mastermind who ordered them to carry out the abduction. He was also the one who spread rumors claiming Mr. Fu had staged the whole kidnapping incident himself. Those leaked audio recordings were also AI deepfake fabrications. Mr. Fu has been completely innocent from the very start." Xinhuan Ning glanced out toward the gloomy, overcast sky outside the window, murderous fury burning bright deep within her eyes. Su Haoyu. That night, Su Haoyu was making his way home along a quiet street when a cold gust of wind suddenly swept over his skin. A terrible sense of foreboding welled up inside his chest, and instinctively he quickened his walking speed. In the next heartbeat, a shadow leaped out from the dark side alley, and a rough hand clamped tight over his mouth and nose. Before Su Haoyu could let out even a single cry for help, his consciousness slipped away and everything turned pitch black. When he finally opened his eyes again, he found himself trapped inside a dimly lit, damp basement. Xinhuan Ning sat on a sofa not far away, her unblinking gaze pinned entirely on his body. Su Haoyu eyed her with deep wariness filling every line of his face. "What is it you want from me?" Xinhuan Ning rose slowly to her feet and advanced step by step until she stood directly in front of him. She brought her heel crashing down hard onto his thigh. Her teeth ground together as she spat out her anger. "Su Haoyu, you actually dared to arrange Fu Chen's kidnapping? And you framed him for trying to extort money?" Su Haoyu shook his head frantically, rambling in a desperate attempt to shift all blame away from himself. "I have no idea what you are talking about. All I know is Fu Chen colluded with those kidnappers to squeeze cash out of you. This has absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with me." Xinhuan Ning ground her high-heeled shoe viciously against the back of Su Haoyu's hand. A soul-piercing scream echoed and bounced off every cold concrete wall inside the basement. Xinhuan Ning flipped on the huge display screen positioned behind her. Footage plate showing Su Haoyu's mother hanging suspended over the open ocean, held up by a heavy crane. Swarms of bloodthirsty sharks circled directly underneath her, their jaws gaping wide open. "Please set me free. I know I have done wrong. I will never target Fu Chen ever again," the woman begged on the screen. Watching this horrifying footage, Su Haoyu teetered right on the very brink of a total mental breakdown. "Xinhuan Ning, you cannot do this. This is outright murder," he shouted in terror. Xinhuan Ning shot forward and grabbed him tightly by the throat, killing intent blazing out of every inch of her stare. "When you plotted against Fu Chen's mother, was that not intentional murder as well?" Hatred burned fiercely within Su Haoyu's eyes, all his fake flattery and feigned affection vanishing completely. He yelled hoarsely at her. "Xinhuan Ning, you are the one who deserves to die most of all. If it were not for you, Fu Chen would never have endured all this suffering. You pushed him down into the abyss one step at a time. So what right do you have to play the part of the heartbroken lover right now?" Su Haoyu's face turned dark purple from lack of oxygen, and his voice grew rough and ragged. Xinhuan Ning stared at him with a sinister, icy glare before shoving him away with brutal force. Su Haoyu crashed heavily against the hard basement wall, and an unsettling cracking sound came from his cervical spine. Agonizing pain shot throughout his whole body, and he wished he could simply die on the spot. Xinhuan Ning looked down at Su Haoyu writhing in agony across the floor, her expression as frigid as a messenger straight from hell. She clapped her hands once. The heavy metal basement doors swung wide open, and several large, muscular men marched into the room. The second Su Haoyu caught sight of those men, his face drained of every last drop of color. He looked toward Xinhuan Ning, overcome with sheer panic. "Xinhuan Ning, you cannot do this to me. I admit my mistakes, please spare me just this once," he begged. Yet Xinhuan Ning would not even grant him one fleeting glance. She turned and strode toward the exit, leaving only one cold sentence hanging in the air. "Su Haoyu, this is the karmic retribution you have rightly earned." Su Haoyu was drowning in utter despair, and he roared at the top of his lungs toward her departing back. "Xinhuan Ning, then what about your own karma? The only reply he received was mocking laughter pouring out from the group of men closing in around him. The moment Shen Ning stepped out of the basement, her assistant hurried over holding a new document. President Shen, we have uncovered that the Shu family holds a project located within America. It had been stalled for quite some time, but it has suddenly restarted, and Su Shan is personally overseeing the whole operation. Shen Ning's eyes locked onto the word America printed on that paper, and she immediately headed for her waiting car. As she walked, she barked out an order to her assistant. Book me a flight ticket bound for America immediately. Right before climbing into the vehicle, she abruptly spun back around toward her assistant. Bring along the ashes of Fu Chen's mother and younger sister. As long as I hold these in my possession, he will definitely come back home with me. The assistant shifted nervously on his feet and stammered out his bad news. President Shen, the ashes belonging to Mr. Fu's mother and sister are no longer there. They were stolen half a month ago. Shen Ning's gaze darkened instantly with boiling fury. What? Who dared pull such a stunt right under my very nose? The assistant pulled up surveillance camera footage onto his device. The clip showed a household maid carrying 2 sandalwood boxes out through the back door. Then climbing straight into that familiar Maybach. Shen Ning clenched both her fists so tight her knuckles whitened, and she spoke in a low, venomous tone. Su Shan. Fu Chen belongs to me. You will never take him away from my side. Over in America, I had just pulled an all-nighter inside the lab, exhaustion written all over every feature of my face. I was about to hail a taxi to head back home when a bright-colored Ferrari came speeding over and pulled to a smooth stop right in front of me. Su Shan stepped out of the sports car, pulled open the passenger side door, and wore a brilliant warm smile. I skipped all formal polite gestures and hopped straight into the passenger seat. As soon as I settled inside, Su Shan handed over a paper breakfast bag. She smiled and asked me, "Tough long night working?" I accepted the bag and tore it open. Inside sat a cup of oat soy milk and salted egg yolk shumai, 2 foods that happened to be my absolute favorite meals. I glanced over at Su Shan in complete surprise, utterly confused. How did you manage to get this style of breakfast here in America? I do not recall passing any shops that sell these nearby. Su Shan reached over and helped me pry open the lid for my soy milk drink. A faint smile playing across her lips. I made all of this myself. I nearly choked on the sip I had just taken, shock flooding over me. I truly never would have guessed you knew how to cook. While she kept driving down the road, she took out a tissue and held it gently up toward my mouth. There is so much about me you still do not know. You will have plenty of time to find out later. For some strange reason my ears grew warm. I quickly diverted my gaze to stare out the car window, nervously grabbing documents out of my bag to change the subject. The drug has officially entered its testing phase. We should receive our final test results within 1 or 2 days, I told her quickly. Su Shan did not even glance down at the paperwork. Instead, she picked up her phone and called her secretary. Make all necessary preparations. We are hosting a press conference 3 days from now. I want the entire world to learn that the Su Group has co-developed this drug alongside genius Dr. Fu Chen. A look of confusion crossed over my face as I questioned her. Should we not wait until we get our test results before announcing this public event? If we hold this press conference now and the drug development fails, it will deal massive reputational damage to the Su Group. Su Shan turned her head and looked me straight in the eyes, her expression completely serious. Her eyes radiated unshakable conviction. I have full faith in you. Besides, this is my decision, it has nothing to do with you. Just focus on completing your own work. No matter what may unfold, I will stand right there on the front lines beside you. Do not stress yourself over it. I sat there frozen. This was the very first time somebody believed in me without holding even a single shred of doubt. Someone who offered unconditional backing and stood firmly behind my back. I gave her a slow nod of my head. Soft sunlight filtered in through the car windows. My heart, sealed tight for so very long, fluttered just a tiny little bit. At the airport overseas, Shen Ning had just stepped off the arriving airplane. A blast of frigid outside air washed over her skin, and she could not stop herself from shivering. She stretched out her hand to flag down a taxi, when her eyes caught sight of the huge public plaza digital screen. A familiar face was being broadcast across the massive display. I sat with quiet confidence before the cameras, holding our newly developed drug in my hands. The Shu Group's logo stood out prominently on the backdrop situated right behind me. Passers-by chattered amongst themselves as they watched the screen. Word has it Fu Chen created a brand new drug for the shoe group that outperforms every competing product on the market. This anti-cancer drug is powerful enough to push the shoe group straight to the top of the pharmaceutical industry. Xinhuan Ning really tossed away a priceless diamond for a worthless rock. She married such an extraordinary man and never once appreciated him. She actually divorced a top-tier talent like Fu Chen for another man, one pedestrian remarked. Listening to those whispered comments from strangers all around her, Xinhuan Ning felt as though her heart was being squeezed in a vice. Longing burned in her eyes as she stared at my image up on the large screen. "Fu Chen, I am here to bring you home," she whispered to herself. Following the address shown within the advertisement, Xinhuan Ning rushed over to the press conference venue. Security guards blocked her path firmly right at the main entryway. This is the shoe group's new product launch event. Unauthorized individuals are strictly prohibited from entering these premises. Xinhuan Ning's eyes darkened with rage. "Get out of my way," she growled at the guard. "I am Xinhuan Ning, Chief Executive Officer of the Xin Group. I am going inside to find my husband." The guard sized her up for a moment, then burst out into mocking laughter. "I do not care if you are from the Xin Group or any other group. No official invitation means no entry. For all I know, you work for some shady small company trying to sneak in here and steal our technical research. I have no patience for your nonsense," Xinhuan Ning said in a cold, sharp voice. "I am walking in there right now to take my husband away." She stepped forward, trying to force her way past security. In the next instant, a metal baton slammed brutally against her back. Xinhuan Ning crumpled pitifully onto the ground, without enough strength left in her body to stand back up. A live feed of the press conference played on the giant outdoor screen near the entrance. Her eyes locked onto my figure displayed there. I stood center stage, radiating poise and self-assurance, introducing the product I held within my hands. I looked relaxed, confident, and glowing. Xinhuan Ning stretched her hand out toward my image on the screen. "Hubby," she murmured softly. "I have arrived." The guard followed her line of sight and realized she was talking to the broadcast footage of me. Anger flashed across his face. "Oh, I get it now. You are trying to chase after our CEO's boyfriend. Go look in a mirror. Who do you even think you are?" Every single word from that guard stabbed deep into Xinhuan Ning's heart like sharp thorns. She grabbed tightly onto the leg of his uniform pants. "What did you just say?" she demanded in a low, trembling voice. "What do you mean, your CEO's boyfriend?" The guard looked down at her with open disdain and scoffed out loud. "You truly had no idea? Our boss Su Shan has been pursuing Mr. Fu for a very long time. They are currently in the getting to know each other phase. If he is not her boyfriend, then what would you call him?" Xinhuan Ning balled her hands into tight fists. "That cannot possibly be true. Fu Qin belongs to me. Nobody is allowed to take him away from me." She struggled painfully back onto her feet and limped toward the venue's back entrance. The press conference had now officially drawn to a close. Su Shan linked her arm through mine as we walked off the main stage, tenderness shining within her eyes. "You worked incredibly hard today. I always knew you could pull this off," she said to me. I let out a long, relieved breath and reached over to gently squeeze her hand in return. Su Shan's body stiffened slightly from the unexpected touch. Before she could respond, I spoke with obvious excitement bubbling in my tone. "You have no clue how nervous I was. My heart is still pounding away inside my chest." Seeing my thrilled, jittery expression, a soft smile tugged at the corners of her lips. The bright, confident Fu Chun of old had finally returned. I glanced down at our hands clasped together and quickly pulled my own hand away. I hurried a few steps ahead of her. "I am heading to the lounge area to rest for a short while," I told her while walking onward. "Go ahead and wrap up all the post-event work." Su Shan stood still, watching my retreating back with an affectionate smile resting on her features. I reached the lounge door and pushed it open in a rush. Right after I stepped inside, a pair of hands shot out from the surrounding darkness and dragged me forcefully into the room. I attempted to fight back, when a familiar voice whispered right beside my ear. "Hubby, it is me." The room lights flickered on. When I saw Xinhuan Ning standing there, her face haggard and covered in fresh bruises, genuine shock shot through my whole system. "Xinhuan Ning, what are you doing here?" She caught sight of the guarded, wary look written all over my face, and disbelief flickered across hers. "Hubby, are you afraid of me?" I pushed against her, trying to create distance, but she threw both arms around me and held me in a crushing tight hug. My voice held zero trace of warmth or softness. Xinhuan Ning, there is nothing left between us at all. Your current actions are putting my personal safety in serious danger. Xinhuan Ning's arms froze around me. She stared at me, unable to believe what she had just heard. You are my husband. We are supposed to be close to one another. Disgust showed plainly across my features. Xinhuan Ning, we got divorced a very long time ago. Things between us can never go back to how they once were. It was as if my words never even reached her ears. She clung onto me desperately and refused to let go. Nothing can end us without my permission. Even if we are divorced, we can simply get married all over again. Hubby, you are mine, and you will always belong only to me. Footsteps echoed from out in the hallway just at that critical moment. Fu Chen, the press conference is finished. The whole lab team is ready for our celebration. Everyone is waiting for you, Su Shan's voice rang out from outside the door. I still had not fully recovered my physical strength, so I could not break free from her grip. Xinhuan Ning pressed her palm firmly over my mouth to muffle any sound I might make. She breathed her words directly into my ear. Hubby, is Su Shan the reason you refuse to come back to me? You are mine, and you will only ever be mine. Receiving no response from inside the room, Su Shan knocked once more, growing confused. Fu Chen, are you in there? Everybody is still waiting for you. I longed to call out, yet I could not move even a single inch. Then another staff member's voice sounded in the corridor. I think Mr. Fu must have already left the building. Hearing that, Su Shan let out a small sigh. He really took off without me, she murmured. After that, I heard her footsteps fade away down the hall. Xinhuan Ning cracked the lounge door open a tiny gap. Once she confirmed Su Shan was truly gone, she pulled the door fully open and dragged me out into the corridor. The instant we stepped out, a sharp blade pressed cold and firm directly against Xinhuan Ning's throat. Let him go. Xinhuan Ning lifted her head and met Su Shan's icy, unforgiving stare. Su Shan, what in the world do you think you are doing? Su Shan pushed the knife edge a fraction closer. Ruthless resolve filled her eyes. Release him. Let Fu Chen go, or I will not hesitate to slice your throat open. Su Shan glanced quickly over toward me. Once she verified I was unharmed, the tight tension in her expression softened just a little. Xinhuan Ning glared back at Su Shan with a twisted look consuming her face. Who do you imagine you are? She spat viciously. Fu Chen is my husband. This is none of your business whatsoever. I looked over toward Xinhuan Ning and let out a cold sneer. Xinhuan Ning, our story ended ages ago. From the day my mother passed away, any possible future for us died alongside her. Xinhuan Ning stretched out her hand trying to grab hold of me, but Su Shan immediately pressed the knife deeper. The sharp metal cut through her skin, and bright red blood trickled down along the blade's surface. Slowly Xinhuan Ning loosened her grasp on my body. Without any hesitation at all, I spun around and ran away from the scene. Xinhuan Ning watched my back as I fled, feeling as though an invisible giant hand was squeezing her heart until she could barely draw breath. Su Shan gradually lowered the knife she held in her hand. She looked straight at Xinhuan Ning and spoke clearly. Xinhuan Ning, Fu Chen is not some trinket you can possess. He does not belong to any single person. With those final words, Su Shan turned and hurried to chase after me. Xinhuan Ning clenched her fists so hard her knuckles whitened, staring at Su Shan's departing figure. Fu Chen, I will never let you go. You can only ever be mine. Su Shan drove me safely back to my place. We sat in complete silence throughout the whole ride. I stared out at the dark night sky, long-buried memories flooding nonstop through my mind. All of my thoughts were tangled up like a knotted ball of yarn. All of a sudden, a pair of gentle small hands covered over my own hands. I snapped back to the present moment, listening to Su Shan's soft voice. Do not overthink everything. I will assign people to guard you these next few days. Xinhuan Ning will not dare pull any reckless moves against you. I nodded my head. There is no way things can ever return to how they used to be between us, I said quietly. I just never imagined she would end up becoming this kind of person in this day and age. Back inside my residence, I was getting ready to go to bed when every light cut out all at once, plunging everything into pitch-black darkness. Someone had deliberately cut off the power supply. Panic washed over me while I stood trapped in the dark room. I was about to get in touch with Su Shan, when a pair of arms suddenly wrapped tight around my waist. Xinhuan Ning's voice echoed through the blackness. Hubby, I finally caught you. Before I could react in any way, a damp cloth was pressed forcefully over my mouth. Right after that, my whole world faded into total blackness. When I opened my eyes again, I recognized that familiar room instantly. It was the house that had kept me imprisoned for 5 long years. Xinhuan Ning sat perched right on the edge of the bed, gazing down at me with deep affection shining in her eyes. I sat upright and roughly swatted her reaching hand away. "Xinhuan Ning," I said in a frigid tone, "have you completely lost your mind? Do you comprehend what crime you have committed? Kidnapping me and bringing me back to this place is against the law." Xinhuan Ning seized my hand and held it firmly. "I am simply bringing my own husband home," she shouted. "What crime could there possibly be in that?" She laid out all my identification documents across the bedside surface and attempted to drag me toward the doorway. "We are going to reapply for our marriage certificate today," she said while pulling at my arm. I stared straight at her with total coldness in my gaze. "Xinhuan Ning, I do not love you anymore." There was no room left for any misunderstanding between us, our chapter had long since closed, and there would never be any possible future for the two of us. Xinhuan Ning's grip on my wrist went slack all at once, and she stared right at me, shock flooding every inch of her features. "Hubby, you cannot treat me like this. I have sacrificed absolutely everything for your sake, and I cannot bear to lose you a second time." I let out a cold scoff at her heart-wrenching, pitiful display unfolding right before my eyes. "Xinhuan Ning, you did not lose everything because of me. Every bit of this miserable outcome is self-inflicted by your own hands. The truth is you have never truly loved me. The only person you have ever cared about, deep down, is yourself." Xinhuan Ning teetered right on the edge of a mental collapse and threw herself forcefully into my chest, hot tears streaming down her cheeks. "That is not what really happened. I do love you, you are the only man I have ever loved from start to finish. Every single person who harmed you has already paid a heavy price 10 times over for what they did. Hubby, please trust my words. I will cherish you properly, for every single remaining year of our lives. Just come back to me, will you?" Yet my gaze stayed frigid and unyielding, not a flicker of softness showing across my face. "Xinhuan Ning, I used to burn with hatred toward you. That hatred ignited the exact moment my sister leaped from that rooftop. I used every ounce of strength in my arms to push her broken figure away from my body. But strangely enough, I do not even hold hatred for you any longer. All I feel for you now is nothing but pure pity." Xinhuan Ning's whole body trembled violently, her eyes blown wide as she processed what she had just heard. "You feel pity for me?" The quiet heavy stillness inside the trap room was suddenly shattered by the sharp ringtone of her mobile phone. The incoming call was coming straight from the city hospital. "President Shen, your mother suffered severe cerebral hypoxia. Medical staff could not bring her back, she has just been officially declared dead." Xinhuan Ning stumbled backward, her legs nearly giving out beneath her weight, completely stunned by the terrible news. How could this happen? How did everything spiral down to this terrible point? Her eyes turned hollow and vacant, searching my face desperately as if she hoped I could hand her some sort of explanation. I only met her blank stare with unwavering coldness. "Xinhuan Ning, this is what people call karmic retribution." The second my final word faded into the air, the loud, frantic wail of police sirens drifted in from outside the building. Xinhuan Ning spun around in a panic and rushed toward the window to peer out onto the street. More than a dozen police vehicles were parked outside the house, red and blue emergency lights flashing wildly across the walls. I seized this brief moment when her attention was fully diverted, and made a desperate attempt to twist the door handle and make my escape. But the instant the door creaked open, pure, bone-chilling terror washed over my entire body. Su Haoyu was standing right in the doorway, his features twisted into a horrifying, malicious grimace. Deadly murderous rage burned bright within his eyes as he locked his sight firmly onto me. "I finally managed to hunt you down as well." A sharp blade was gripped tight within Su Haoyu's shaking hand, and he lunged forward toward me like a completely deranged man. Before my brain could even process what was happening, Xinhuan Ning yanked me hard and tucked me safely behind her own body, narrowly dodging the deadly knife strike. Xinhuan Ning shot Su Haoyu a furious, menacing glare. "What on earth are you doing showing up here?" Su Haoyu let out a harsh mocking sneer. "Xinhuan Ning, you cast me into a living nightmare. The sole reason I clung to life was so I could drag you straight down into hell alongside me." Su Haoyu's eyes fell onto Xinhuan Ning as she stood shielding my body behind hers, and his boiling hatred practically spilled out into the open air. "This works out perfectly. You have brought Fu Chen right back here. Now I can send both of you to hell so you can be together forever." As those bitter words left his mouth, he pulled a small lighter out of his jacket pocket. That was when I finally noticed the floor all across the doorway was soaked through with gasoline. Su Haoyu's expression turned utterly crazed as he fixed his gaze on Shen Wanning. Even if you somehow manage to run from this room, you will never outrun the long arm of the law. You might as well perish right here with me. He flicked the lighter sparking to life and hurled it straight into the puddles of gasoline spread across the ground. Raging hungry flames burst to life in an instant, rapidly swallowing up large sections of the room. Shen Wanning's eyes darted around in panic. She grabbed a heavy ceramic vase sitting nearby and smashed it with full force against the window behind our backs. Thick window glass shattered into countless sharp fragments all across the floor. Seeing our path toward escape, Su Haoyu charged toward us at full speed, knife raised high in his hand. "Not a single one of you is getting out of this place alive," he screamed at the top of his lungs. In that split second of chaos, Shen Wanning threw her own body forward to stand between Su Haoyu and me. His sharp knife sank deep into her flesh, piercing right through her body. Bright warm red blood pooled quickly and spread across the floor beneath her feet. Yet she twisted her head around to look directly toward me. "Hubby, run for your life." I did not waste even a single second hesitating. I scrambled up onto the edge of the broken windowsill. Down below, Su Shan was standing on the lawn, her face twisted with overwhelming fear and worry as she stared upward toward me. I cast one final fleeting glance backward at Shen Wanning inside the burning room. She forced a faint, fragile smile onto her face, her gaze overflowing with deep, unrequited love. Her lips moved silently without sound, forming words only I could read. "Hubby, I am so sorry. If there truly is a next life, could you grant me one more chance?" I offered her no reply whatsoever. I twisted my body and leaped down from the window. A deafening massive explosion erupted directly behind me the very moment I jumped. Roaring flames consumed the entire house within mere seconds. I collapsed onto the soft grass, struggling painfully to pull myself upright, my eyes glued to the towering blazing inferno. One single silent tear slowly trickled down along my cheek. Shen Wanning was gone. She had perished within that merciless fire together with Su Haoyu. Following this catastrophic disaster, the Shin group fell completely apart and tumbled headlong into total ruin. I spent a period of time recovering from my injuries inside the hospital before I was officially discharged. The moment I stepped out of the hospital gates, I booked a flight and headed straight back to America. Above my head, the sky stretched wide and completely free of clouds. I knelt down on the ground right in front of my mother's and my sister's tombstones. "Mom, you. Su Haoyu and Shen Wanning are both dead. Everyone who hurt you has received the punishment they deserved." Right after I finished speaking those quiet words, a lovely bouquet of sunflowers was gently set down on the ground directly in front of me. I lifted my head in quiet surprise and met Su Shan's bright, clear pair of eyes. A soft, gentle smile played across her lips. "Did you sneak all the way back here just to try and hide away from me?" Her unexpected comment made me drop my gaze, a little flustered and awkward under her stare. Back when I was resting in the hospital, half conscious, I could feel someone brush their palm along my cheek and press a soft kiss against my forehead. "Fuchin, you are not allowed to run away from me ever again from this day forward." Su Shan rose up onto her tiptoes and reached out her hands to cup the sides of my face, her eyes brimming with sincere deep affection. "It is all right. I am willing to wait. I will wait patiently until the day you can genuinely open up your heart to me. I will keep waiting until there is a real, proper spot reserved for me deep inside your heart. I have already waited for 5 long years. I do not mind waiting even longer, for the rest of our lives if that is what it takes. As long as that person is you, I possess endless amounts of patience." I looked down toward Su Shan, warm golden sunlight wrapping all around her whole figure. The corners of my mouth lifted upward into a small genuine smile. "Su Shan, the sunlight is absolutely gorgeous today, and it feels so wonderful having you right here beside me."